welcome. I'm truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 30 BC. You feel the grit of ancient dust under your sandals, a fine powder mixed with something else, something distinctly Alexandrian. It's a swirl of frankincense and salt air, the metallic tang of the harbor, and an undercurrent of something rich, almost sweet, like crushed figs left too long in the sun. This city breathes 1,000 scents at once, a dizzying tapestry that invades your senses. You push through the throng on the docks, the press of bodies, a constant rhythmic surge around you. Shouts in Greek and Egyptian pierce the clamor of cargo being unloaded, amphorae clanking, ropes groaning under strain. Sunlight, sharp and relentless, glints off the Nile's surface, reflecting a blinding sheen that forces you to squint. Every face you pass seems etched with a story, a mixture of determination and weary resignation. Then you see it. A flicker, not a coin dropped, but a deliberate, almost audacious flash. High above the ordinary chaos, on the stern of a galley unlike any other in the harbor, a splash of gold catches the light. It's too distant to make out details, but the sheer opulence is unmistakable. It's part of a royal standard, perhaps, or an emblem. You feel a strange pull towards it, a curiosity that cuts through the general hustle. This isn't the common gold of a merchant's hoard. This is the gold of power, of defiance, perhaps of a desperate last stand. Your eyes trace the line from that distant glimmer down to the gangplank, where guards with polished bronze helmets stand rigid, their spears catching the same unforgiving light. There's a tension here, a different kind of silence within the noise. People around you glance, then quickly look away, a silent acknowledgement of something momentous happening. You notice the way a merchant near you tightens his grip on a ledger, his face momentarily losing its usual shrewdness, replaced by a fleeting anxiety. Everyone knows who this gold belongs to, and what it represents. A sudden gust of wind whips through, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of roses and something heavier, more intoxicating, jasmine maybe, or an exotic perfume. It's fleeting, but it leaves an impression, a hint of luxury in a world teetering on the edge. You find yourself scanning the deck of that gilded ship, half expecting to see a figure emerge, someone burdened by the weight of an empire, yet still adorned with the remnants of unparalleled splendor. The air feels heavy, charged with unspoken expectation, a silent countdown. The gold gleams, a beacon of a glorious past, an uncertain present, and a terrifying future. It's a defiant shimmer in the face of overwhelming odds, a queen's gamble laid bare for all of Alexandria to witness. You feel the heavy, humid air cling to your skin, the distant cries of gulls blending with the low thrum of the city. The entire scene feels poised, ready to tilt. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it there? Share in the comments. It's astonishing, isn't it? How much history can be contained in a single glint of light. How the weight of an entire world can rest on the gleam of something so precious, so fragile. You feel a prickle on the back of your neck. A strange awareness that isn't just the sun. The rhythmic pounding of your own heart starts to merge with the subtle, shifting murmur around you. It's no longer the loud shouts of the docks, but a lower, more pervasive hum. 1,000 hushed voices, like restless bees in a hive. You strain your ears, trying to pluck individual words from the indistinguishable buzz. But they blend into a tide of indistinct sound, a collective breath held and released. You notice the faces in the crowd are no longer merely busy or weary. Now a different tension holds them. Some stare with an almost desperate hope, others with a palpable fear, and a few with a quiet, seething resentment that you can practically feel radiating off them. Their eyes, once darting to the distant gold, now seem fixed on something more immediate, something approaching the gangplank. You instinctively pull back a little, pressing into the rough-hewn timber of a nearby stall. Seeking a small measure of anonymity, you feel the cool, splintered wood against your back, a stark contrast to the human heat and emotional intensity surging forward. The air itself feels heavier, thick with unspoken thoughts. It's as if the very atmosphere is weighed down by the collective anxieties and expectations of this city, all converging on a single, fateful point. You realize this isn't just about a ship or a person. It's about the fate of an empire, the abrupt, terrifying end of an era. You watch as a ripple moves through the crowd, like wind across a field of wheat. Heads turn, whispers intensify, then abruptly subside into an almost reverent silence. It's the kind of silence that's louder than any shout, pregnant with profound consequence. Then you see her. Not the distant shimmer of gold anymore, but the figure the gold adorns, now much closer, her presence undeniable. Even from this distance, you perceive the weight. Not the physical metal, but the invisible crown, the crushing burden of a kingdom on the brink. You see how her posture, regal yet undeniably weary, seems to carry the immense pressure of every gaze, every hushed judgment, every desperate plea. Her guards move with a heightened alertness, their hands subtly shifting on their spear shafts. It's a silent, almost imperceptible choreography of protection and impending danger. You notice the way a young woman next to you clutches a small amulet, her knuckles white, her gaze fixed with a bewildering mix of awe and terror. You sense the conflicting currents of loyalty and betrayal in the air. Each glance, each subtle shift in the crowd's posture, seems to hold an opinion, a verdict. You imagine the words they are holding back, the hopes and fears whispered only to the wind, or silently within their own minds, a constant, low thrum beneath the surface of the quiet. The scent of crushed grapes and dust is now overlaid with something sharper, like the metallic tang of old ambition and fresh despair. You feel a strange connection to this moment, a witness to a pivotal turn in the tide of history. The murmuring tongues tell a story without uttering a single clear word, a story of an empire's final breaths and a queen's impossible fight. You realize the true weight of a crown isn't just the jewels and the power, but the collective consciousness of those it rules, or attempts to. It's the silent judgments, the hopeful prayers, the bitter resentments. All of it presses down, an immense, invisible force. It makes you wonder how anyone could possibly stand under such a burden. You lift the ornate goblet, the rim cool and smooth against your lips. The spiced wine washes over your tongue, a complex dance of cinnamon and star anise, a hint of honey, and something deeper, almost smoky, that lingers on the back of your throat. It's rich, warming you from the inside, a temporary balm against the gnawing unease that seems to permeate the very air of Alexandria these days. You're in a chamber draped in heavy, intricately embroidered silks, the fabric absorbing most sounds, yet somehow amplifying the hushed whispers of the handful of people around you. Oil lamps cast flickering shadows across the faces, making expressions difficult to read, but you catch glimpses of strained smiles, darting eyes. The air is thick with the scent of lotus and myrrh, mingled with the lingering aroma of rich foods, now cooling on silver platters. Everyone sips their wine, a silent ritual, a collective attempt to maintain a facade of normalcy amidst the growing storm. Then it begins. A low thrum, barely perceptible at first, vibrating through the mosaic tiles beneath your feet. It's not a tremor, but a sound, distant yet building, growing steadily in intensity. It's a deep, guttural sound, not precisely human, nor purely animal, but something vast, disciplined, and immensely powerful. It swells, a collective cry, a roar of thousands that seems to shake the very foundations of the palace. It could be the triumphant shouts of a loyal legion, or perhaps the ominous cheer of an advancing army. The ambiguity hangs heavy in the perfumed air. You feel a tightening in your gut, the warmth of the spiced wine instantly evaporating, replaced by a cold knot of dread or perhaps a strange, desperate thrill. Your eyes instinctively dart to the chamber's entrance, as if you could pierce through the heavy hangings and glimpse the source of that overwhelming sound. You watch the person seated opposite you. A scribe, perhaps, his fingers white-knuckled around an ivory stylus, his gaze fixed on nothing in particular, a flicker of raw fear or desperate hope in his eyes. The wine in your mouth, once a comfort, now tastes sharper, the spices almost aggressive, no longer soothing but a stark reminder of the elaborate, fragile pretense. You hear a sharp clatter from an outer room, a servant dropping a silver tray, the sound jarringly loud in the sudden tense silence that settles after the roar fades. This is the contrast, the taste of exquisite luxury, the scent of ancient privilege, all set against that raw, powerful sound, a visceral reminder of chaos and brutal reality lurking just beyond these gilded walls. It's a moment of unsettling beauty and impending doom. The memory of that roar reverberates in your chest, a silent challenge that no amount of spiced wine can truly drown out. It makes you wonder how long such fragile beauty can endure against such overwhelming force. You feel the metallic taste of ancient dust coat your tongue, a fine, almost imperceptible film that seems to have settled on everything in this corridor. You continue your walk, the cold, smooth marble of the wall, a constant against your fingertips, punctuated by the occasional chip or gouge. You feel the subtle shift in temperature as you move deeper into the palace's lesser-used wings, the air growing cooler, heavier, almost as if it's been undisturbed for decades. The grand scale of the architecture is undeniable. Towering columns, soaring arches, but beneath the opulence you can perceive the faint metallic tang of age and neglect. It's a silent, almost invisible siege of the magnificent. Your gaze catches a faint line, a hairline crack snaking its way up a magnificent pillar, marring the intricate carvings of gods and pharaohs. It's subtle, easily missed, yet once you see it, you can't unsee it. It feels like a wound, a minor imperfection that speaks of something much deeper, something structural, beginning to give way from within. You find yourself tracing its jagged path with your eyes, a small, unsettling revelation in the vastness of the hall. The grand tapestries that once vibrated with vivid colors now hang like tired ghosts, their intricate scenes of triumph and festivity softened by age, the gold thread tarnished, the crimson dyes faded to a dull rust. You reach out, your fingertips brushing against the rough, woven fabric, feeling the brittle stiffness of threads that once depicted living history. It's like touching a memory that's just out of reach, a ghost of its former self, whispering tales only the dust can truly remember. The air here is still, carrying a faint, dry scent, not unpleasant, but redolent of old papyrus, dried spices, and something else, indefinable, like time itself, slowly wearing away at all things. It's a stark contrast to the bustling, perfumed halls you might have passed earlier. A different kind of quiet. This is the quiet of resignation, of things slowly, gently letting go of their vibrancy. Each breath you take feels heavy, filled with the scent of forgotten grandeur. As you turn a corner into a smaller, dimly lit antechamber, you notice a section of a fresco on the wall, depicting a vibrant procession, but large flakes of paint have fallen away, leaving patches of raw plaster beneath. A queen's face, once full of authority and beauty, is now half erased, her single visible eye gazing into eternity from a fragmented canvas. It's not violent destruction, but a slow, dignified retreat into anonymity, a quiet surrender. You can almost hear the faint whisper of forgotten rituals, the rustle of robes that once swept these very floors with purpose and power. Now only echoes in the cavernous silence. You pass an empty pedestal. The statue it once held long gone, leaving only a circular imprint and a faint discolored patch on the marble. It's a silent testament to absence, to something that once was central, now vanished, leaving a hollow space in the heart of the palace. A small, almost imperceptible shiver runs down your spine. This place, despite its immense scale and undeniable historical significance, feels fragile, like a magnificent structure that has withstood countless storms, only to begin crumbling from within, not with a bang, but with the quiet, persistent whisper of history turning its back. You imagine the lavish feasts, the grand pronouncements, the urgent political debates that once filled these very spaces. Now only the dust dances in the weak light, and the faint, pervasive sense of a fading empire remains, clinging to the very fabric of the stones. It's an almost mournful beauty, this slow surrender of grandeur to the relentless march of time, a palpable, aching echo of what once was. The sheer weight of that fading glory settles around you, heavy and profound. You feel the dry, crisp edge of the papyrus against your fingertips, a stark contrast to the humid Egyptian air. It's stiff, almost unyielding, hinting at the official nature of the message it carries. The scroll is tightly wound, secured by a wax seal that, even unbroken, seems to exude an aura of rigid authority. You turn it over in your hands, the light weight somehow feeling immensely heavy, imbued with a gravity that makes your breath catch. A faint, almost metallic tang, like dry ink and aged parchment, drifts from it, a distinct Roman scent that seems utterly out of place amidst the sweet perfumes and spices of Alexandria. It smells of distant legions, of cold marble halls, of an order that expects to be obeyed without question. You feel a prickle on your skin, a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room, but everything to do with the power it represents. You begin to unroll it, slowly, deliberately. The papyrus makes a dry, whispering scratch, a fragile sound that seems amplified in the hushed silence of the chamber. Each rustle feels like a step closer to an inevitable truth, a truth you suspect is unwelcome. Your eyes move across the neatly inscribed Latin characters, precise and unembellished, each stroke radiating an impersonal, unyielding will. There's no flourish here, no attempt at persuasion, just the stark pronouncement of power. You glance up for a moment, catching the worried, expectant gaze of a young scribe across the table, his hand unconsciously pressed to his chest, as if to steady a wildly beating heart. You can see the reflection of your own apprehension in his wide, dark eyes. He knows, just as you do, that letters like this from Rome rarely bring good tidings. The air in the room feels thick, charged with unspoken dread, every breath held, every shadow seeming to lengthen. The words, though not fully deciphered, already cast a long shadow. You feel the weight of countless decisions, of years of maneuvering and desperate gambles, all poised on the edge of this fragile sheet. It's not just a message. It's a turning point. A cold, hard declaration that shrinks the world, narrowing the options, squeezing the very air from your lungs. You continue to read, your thumb running over the ancient fibers of the papyrus, feeling the slight ridges, the subtle imperfections that speak of its creation so long ago. Yet, the message feels utterly present, entirely immediate, its implications reverberating through your bones. This isn't just news. It's a decision made by an unyielding power, a fate now laid bare on a simple roll of papyrus. The chill it carries is a premonition, a cold, hard fact settling into the heart of a kingdom. It's a stark reminder that even a queen, surrounded by luxury and loyalty, can be reduced to the recipient of an impersonal decree, a puppet whose strings are now being pulled by a distant, formidable hand. The quiet scratch of the papyrus continues to echo, a relentless tally of choices running out. You step into the hushed expanse of the great library, and the first thing that strikes you is the scent. It's a dry, almost sweet aroma of aged papyrus and cedarwood, mingled with a faint, clean earthiness that speaks of centuries of carefully preserved knowledge. It clings to the air, heavy and profound, an atmosphere utterly distinct from the bustling streets or the perfumed palace. Your footsteps, usually confident, feel unnaturally loud on the polished stone floor, each sound swallowed by the cavernous silence that reigns here, broken only by the distant, soft scrape of sandals or a cough. You move between towering shelves, a labyrinth of wisdom stretching endlessly around you. Scrolls, countless thousands of them, are stacked in orderly rows, their rolled forms a silent testament to human thought. You run your hand along a dusty wooden shelf, feeling the smooth, cool grain beneath your palm. Here the struggle isn't with swords or legions, but with ideas, with narratives, with the very fabric of truth itself, being spun and unspun. You notice a group of scribes clustered near a high window, their faces illuminated by the pale light filtering in. Their movements are quick, urgent, not the measured calm of typical scholarship. One man gestures emphatically towards an unrolled scroll, his finger tracing lines of text with an intensity that seems to vibrate across the silent room. Another nods sharply, his brow furrowed in concentration, then turns quickly to dip his stylus into an inkwell, his movements precise and economical. They aren't simply transcribing. They are crafting, adapting, perhaps even twisting words for immediate impact. You lean closer, trying to catch a snippet, but their whispers are too low, too rapid. You can only perceive the sheer energy, the focused intensity, the feeling that what they are doing here right now is of immense strategic consequence. It's a silent, intellectual battle, fought with ink and parchment, where reputations are destroyed and allegiances swayed. You feel the weight of every word, every carefully chosen phrase, knowing that in these desperate times, a well-placed rumor or a cleverly framed decree can be as devastating and effective as a legion of soldiers on the actual battlefield. You pick up a discarded piece of papyrus from a nearby table, feeling its slightly coarse texture. It's an official-looking document, partially torn, but you catch glimpses of familiar Roman names and phrases, carefully underlined or struck through. You realize these aren't just academic pursuits anymore. This is a war fought on the battlefield of public opinion, where the narrative itself is the primary weapon, honed and sharpened. The air feels charged, not with overt violence, but with the immense, unseen power of information being shaped, wielded, and aimed with deadly precision. You look up at the vastness of the library, at the silent rows of scrolls, each holding a voice from the past, each a potential tool. You understand now that even in its twilight, this city is still a nexus of power, not just military or economic, but profoundly intellectual. The quiet rustle of papyrus, the scratch of a stylus, the murmur of scholarly debate, these are the subtle, yet potent sounds of an empire fighting for its very story, desperately trying to control its own narrative against a relentlessly advancing, narrative-shaping foe. It's a war of words, and the library, a temple of knowledge, has become its silent, formidable arsenal. You feel the vastness of human ambition and the desperate, cunning struggle for control, not just over land and people, but over the very hearts and minds that shape the future. You feel the sun beat down on your exposed skin, a relentless hammer on your head, driving the sweat down your back in trickles. It's not just heat, it's an oppressive, baking weight, thick with the scent of parched earth, mingled with the heavy, sweet fumes of frankincense burning from distant censers. The air itself feels hazy, shimmering above the vast expanse of the crowd, a sea of faces stretching farther than you can see, all turned in one direction. You stand among them, shoulder to shoulder, feeling the press of humanity, the shared expectation. A low, continuous hum rises from the multitude. A collective breath held, then released, then held again. Your eyes squint against the blinding glare bouncing off the polished marble of the grand processional route, lined with colossal statues of gods and pharaohs, their stone gazes fixed on eternity. This is not a subtle display. This is an empire making a statement, a defiant roar in the face of gathering storm clouds. Suddenly, a rhythmic sound pierces the droning hum, a distant, resonant beat of drums, slow and deliberate, growing steadily louder. Then comes the fanfare of trumpets, long, brassy notes that echo off the towering temple walls, vibrating through your very bones. You feel a surge ripple through the crowd, a collective intake of breath, a tightening of the tension that's been building all morning. This isn't just a ceremony. It's a performance, a grand illusion of unwavering power, desperately trying to hold itself together. You watch as the procession begins, a river of color and gold flowing under the scorching sun. Priests in spotless white robes move with stately grace, followed by soldiers in gleaming bronze armor, their helmets catching the light like 1,000 tiny suns. You see the rich, embroidered standards, the sacred animals led on leashes, the symbols of an ancient, proud lineage. Each movement is precise, each step measured, a meticulously choreographed display of order and might. As they pass, you try to discern the expressions on the faces of the participants. Some seem lost in a trance-like devotion. Others wear masks of solemn duty, their eyes unblinking in the harsh light. But you also catch glimpses, fleeting and subtle, of something else. A tightness around the eyes, a jaw clenched a fraction too hard, a flicker of uncertainty. The sun illuminates every pore, every wrinkle, every bead of sweat, making it impossible to hide the human cost beneath the imperial facade. You turn your head, scanning the faces of those around you in the crowd. The sun highlights their hopes, their fears. You see an old woman, her face a roadmap of worry lines, muttering a silent prayer. Next to her, a young man watches with wide, almost defiant eyes, as if daring this spectacle to convince him of its invincibility. It's a contrast that hits you hard. The dazzling, overwhelming display of power on the one hand, and the raw, vulnerable human emotion baking under the same relentless sun on the other. The air thickens with dust kicked up by thousands of sandals, coating your tongue, adding another layer to the dryness in your mouth. You reach for the water skin at your hip, the cool touch of the leather, a small, momentary relief. This ceremony, designed to project strength, also feels like a desperate plea, a last-ditch effort to rally hearts and minds. You realize the true weight of an empire isn't just its armies or its gold, but the fragile belief of its people, all standing here, under the merciless Egyptian sun, witnesses to a grandeur that feels both magnificent and tragically impermanent. It's a powerful, almost desperate act, this performance of glory, as if by sheer force of will, an empire can refuse to fade. You feel the lingering heat radiating from the stone steps beneath your bare feet, even though the sun has begun its descent, casting long, golden shadows across the palace courtyard. The grand ceremony of earlier has faded into a murmur, a distant echo of drums, replaced by a softer, more intimate buzz of courtiers and servants. You're pressed against the cool marble of an alcove, trying to remain unnoticed, observing the flow of people. The air still carries the faint, sweet scent of spent incense, mingling with the fresh aroma of jasmine from the nearby gardens. Suddenly, a small, insistent tug on your tunic. You glance down. A child, no older than 6, with wide, curious eyes and a tangle of dark curls, is looking up at you. Their tiny hand, surprisingly firm, is wrapped around the fabric. They say nothing, just gaze intently, perhaps lost or simply drawn by curiosity. You feel a strange warmth spread from that small contact, a fleeting moment of simple human connection in this place of vast, complex power. Your attention is drawn, however, past the child, to the queen. She is moving slowly, almost regally, through a small cluster of her closest advisors. Even in this more relaxed setting, you see the weight of her presence. Her robes, shimmering with embroidered gold and lapis lazuli, seem less like garments and more like part of an elaborate, living statue. Her face, still bearing traces of the divine makeup from the earlier procession, holds an expression of profound weariness, softened by an almost imperceptible strength. She is not merely a woman. She is a symbol, a living goddess, expected to be flawless, eternal. As she passes nearer, you notice how the courtiers instinctively straighten, their murmurs quieting, their eyes lowering in deference, even fear. No one dares to meet her gaze directly, as if contact with such divinity might be overwhelming, or perhaps even dangerous. You see the faint glint of sweat on her temple, a human detail quickly brushed away by a passing fan-bearer, a silent effort to maintain the illusion of effortless perfection. The child, still holding your tunic, now turns their head, following your gaze. Their innocent eyes fix upon the queen, wide, with an unblinking wonder that none of the adults dare to show. It's a raw, pure observation, devoid of the political calculations or reverent fear that governs everyone else. You see the queen's eyes, briefly, almost imperceptibly, flick towards the child, then away. A fleeting shadow of something. Recognition? Longing? A spark of human connection? Passes over her face before her public mask. That burden of divinity clicks back into place. You feel the child's grip tighten for a moment, then release, as if sensing the invisible barrier that separates the divine from the merely mortal. The queen continues her measured pace, her movements betraying no emotion, no hint of the human beneath the opulent facade. She is a figure of immense power, of sacred authority. Yet in that brief, almost missed glance, you saw a profound, lonely burden. The weight of her crown is not just on her head, but in every gesture, every interaction, every moment. She must be more than just a woman. The touch of that child's hand, however, even for a fleeting second, felt more real, more grounded, than any of the elaborate displays of power around you. It's a stark reminder of the human heart beating beneath the divine raiment, yearning perhaps for a simpler touch, a moment free from the crushing weight of an entire world's expectations. The stench hits you first, a raw, uncompromising punch to the gut. It's not just sweat, though there's plenty of that, thick and cloying in the humid air. It's a noxious blend of stale leather, unwashed bodies, damp straw, and the metallic tang of old blood that seems to cling to every surface. You instinctively wrinkle your nose, but there's no escape from it here, deep within the barracks, far from the perfumed halls of the palace. It's the smell of desperate men, living hard and fighting harder. Then comes the sound, a relentless rhythmic clang, followed by a heavy thunk asterisk, then another clang, like the very heartbeat of war itself. It echoes through the cavernous space, a blacksmith's forge working overtime, beating out weapons and armor with grim urgency. The metallic rings vibrate in your chest, a constant, insistent reminder of the brutal reality lurking just beyond the city's walls. It's a sound that promises violence, a sound that demands attention. You pick your way through the grime-caked pathways between makeshift tents and lean-tos, feeling the uneven, packed earth under your boots. Every surface seems coated with a fine layer of dust and grime, a stark contrast to the polished marble you might have walked on earlier. Clusters of soldiers are everywhere, some mending their worn tunics, others hunched over crude tables, sharpening blades with a rasping scrape that adds to the metallic symphony. You see the glint of determination in their eyes even as sweat plasters hair to their foreheads, their faces etched with a weary resolve. You pass a group sparring with wooden swords, their grunts and shouts adding to the cacophony. The thud of wood on wood is surprisingly violent, a visceral echo of what they are training for. You feel the tension in the air, a coiled spring of readiness, a quiet hum of expectation that crackles just beneath the surface of their everyday tasks. A grizzled veteran, his face scarred and weathered like old parchment, looks up as you pass, his gaze holding a mix of suspicion and a strange, tired understanding, before he returns to honing the edge of his short sword. He doesn't speak, but his look carries the weight of 100 battles. The heat from the forge is intense, radiating outwards in waves, mixing with the already heavy air, making each breath feel thick and labored. You see the blacksmiths, stripped to the waist, their muscles rippling with each swing of the hammer, sparks showering like tiny rebellious stars in the dim light. The sheer physical exertion, the raw power on display, is almost mesmerizing. This isn't the grand, ceremonial display of the palace. This is the grim grinding work that underpins it all. Here, the struggle is tangible, felt in the stinging smoke from the forge, the grit underfoot, the acrid scent of sweat and fear. It's a place where the illusion of divine royalty gives way to the stark, brutal truth of human endurance and impending conflict. You feel a chill, despite the heat, a profound sense of the raw, desperate gamble that is unfolding, resting on the strength of these men and the sharpness of their blades. The incessant ring of hammer on anvil is not just forging steel, it's hammering out a future, piece by agonizing piece. You hear it first, the sharp, distinct clatter of silver on a wooden table. A sound that cuts through the underlying hum of the barracks like a bell. It's a sound that promises and threatens all at once. A metallic jingle that instantly focuses your attention. You feel the rough, unplaned wood of the tent pole against your shoulder, watching from the shadowed entrance of a cramped, low-ceilinged canvas tent. The air inside is thick with the scent of lamp oil, old canvas, and the sharp, clean tang of newly minted coin, oddly pure amidst the usual barracks reek. You see a heavy wooden chest, its lid thrown open, overflowing with stacks of gleaming silver tetradrachms. Their brightness seems almost alien in the dim light, catching every flicker from the single oil lamp hanging above. A man, an officer perhaps, his face grim and unsmiling, sits at the table, systematically counting out piles of coins. His fingers, calloused and thick, handle the precious metal with practiced speed, yet also with a strange, almost reluctant air. One by one, men step forward. They are seasoned soldiers, their tunics stained, their faces weary, their eyes sharp with a desperate hope. You watch the ritual. The officer pushes a stack of coins across the table. The soldier reaches out, his hand often hesitant at first, then firm, closing around the cold, smooth metal. The soft thunk of silver being scooped up, then the faint chink as it's dropped into a leather pouch, sounds like the tolling of a small, somber bell. You notice the variations in their reactions. Some soldiers immediately weigh the pouch in their palm, a quick, almost imperceptible assessment of its heft, a silent test of the promise. Others simply nod curtly, their gaze unwavering, their expression unreadable as they turn and melt back into the shadows. You see the glint of a nervous swallow from a younger recruit, his eyes wide, then quickly averted as he clutches his payment. There's no joyous exuberance here, no loud celebration, only a quiet, almost somber acceptance. You feel a strange tension in the air, a silence heavier than any noise. It's the sound of unspoken questions. Is this enough? Is it worth it? Will this last? The silver, meant to secure loyalty, feels like a fragile bond, easily broken. Each coin exchanged seems to carry not just its monetary value, but the unspoken burden of a life risked, a choice made, a future uncertain. The metallic tang of the silver mixes with the familiar scent of dusty canvas and simmering stew from outside. It's a sensory clash, the cold, hard reality of wealth against the warm, fleeting promise of sustenance. You watch a soldier, once he's received his share, walk to a corner of the tent and immediately begin to inspect the blade of his sword, his face momentarily losing its weariness, replaced by a focused, almost predatory concentration. The silver has bought not just loyalty, but a renewed, sharper resolve. This isn't about grand speeches or passionate appeals. This is the stark, unvarnished transaction of power in desperate times. It's the moment where abstract concepts like allegiance are reduced to tangible, cold metal. You realize that loyalty isn't an unbreakable vow. It's a constant, agonizing calculation weighed in each man's heart and counted out in silver coins. The clatter of each piece of silver landing on that table, the soft jingle as it's put away, is a stark reminder of how high the stakes are, and how much a life or an empire can truly cost. It makes you wonder, deep down, what your own loyalty would be worth in a moment like this. You feel it, almost before you hear it. A subtle shift in the air, a colder current moving through the midday heat of the marketplace. It's not the wind, but something more insidious, a ripple of unease. Then comes the sound, a persistent, low murmur, like a swarm of insects that won't leave you alone, constantly buzzing at the edges of your hearing. It's the sound of whispers, passing from mouth to ear, quick and furtive, spreading like a blight. You feel an itch on your skin, an unpleasant sensation that mirrors the rising tide of suspicion around you, a palpable sense that something is being said, something important, something venomous. You weave through the crowded stalls, the scent of fresh bread and drying spices clashing sharply with a new, acrid smell. Cheap ink and wet plaster. Your eyes are drawn to a wall where men are busily posting fresh scrolls, overlapping older notices. These aren't just decrees. These are declarations of war, not on a battlefield, but in the minds of the people. You see crude drawings, stark and unflattering, depicting familiar faces contorted into caricatures, symbols twisted to represent betrayal and depravity. The bold, aggressive Latin script beneath them leaves little to the imagination. You watch as a fishmonger, usually boisterous, falls silent, his hand pausing mid-gesture. His eyes, normally keen for a bargain, now scan the freshly posted propaganda, his brow furrowing deeper with each word his lips silently form. He glances at his neighbor, a potter, who quickly looks away, a flicker of fear in his eyes. The easy camaraderie of the market has thinned, replaced by a tangible, uncomfortable distance. Everyone looks at the notices, then at each other, then away again, as if the very act of reading might implicate them. The words are designed to stick, to fester, to erode trust. You feel the sting of it, like tiny irritating barbs digging into the fabric of daily life. It's not a direct attack on you, but it targets everything around you, poisoning the well of belief, turning neighbors into wary strangers. You pick up a scrap of discarded papyrus that has fallen to the ground, its surface adorned with a garish, distorted image of a serpent, clearly meant to represent something sinister, something foreign. The raw feeling of the paper against your thumb is unsettling. You perceive the subtle change in the rhythm of the crowd. The usual playful shouts of children seem muted. the haggling less spirited. There's a new hesitancy in gestures, a guardedness in expressions. The propaganda isn't just informing, it's infecting. It's painting a new reality, one where loyalty is questioned and truth is malleable. You can almost taste the bitterness in the air, a blend of fear and resentment, stirred into the dust and everyday smells. The sun beats down, but the chill of the spreading rumors penetrates deeper than any shade. You feel a distinct heaviness, a new weight settling over the city, woven from the threads of these insidious words. It's a silent war, fought with ink and whispered accusations. And you realize how devastatingly effective it can be, slowly chipping away at the very soul of a community. The stain of this propaganda, once absorbed, proves almost impossible to wash away, subtly shifting perceptions, hardening hearts, and preparing the ground for far more tangible battles to come. You feel the last lingering heat of the setting sun on your face, a gentle warmth that contrasts sharply with the chill of unease that has settled over the city. You stand in the vast ceremonial courtyard, amidst a throng of citizens, all pressed together, a collective breath held in anticipation. The air, heavy with the scent of dust and the faint perfume of the palace gardens, feels strangely charged. A silence, deep and expectant, has fallen, far more profound than any hush you've heard before, replacing the day's constant murmur of rumors and fears. Then, a voice. Not the booming Greek of official decrees, not the precise, rigid Latin of Roman proclamations. This voice is different. It's clear, resonant, and strong, cutting through the palpable silence with an almost startling familiarity. It hits you in a way you hadn't expected, deep in your chest, a vibration that feels ancestral, undeniable. She is speaking in the ancient tongue, the language of the Nile, the voice of Egypt itself. You feel a ripple move through the crowd, like wind across a field of tall papyrus. Heads tilt, not in deference, but in a sudden, intense focus. Eyes, previously wary and guarded, widen, a spark of recognition, then something more profound. Surprise, perhaps, or a fierce, unexpected pride. You see an old woman near you, her gnarled hands clasped, a single tear tracing a path through the dust on her cheek. It's a connection, immediate and visceral, shattering the layers of formality and distance that usually separate ruler from ruled. Her words are not just sounds, they are echoes of shared history, resonating with every stone of this ancient land. You feel the truth in them, or at least the profound, unshakable sincerity of a message delivered in a mother tongue, stripped of translation and intermediary. It's a bold choice, a deliberate act of defiance against the Roman narrative, against the whispers of foreignness. It's as if she's reaching out directly, touching the very heart of her people, bypassing the logic and appealing to something far deeper. You perceive the subtle shift in the crowd's posture. Shoulders, previously slumped with resignation, begin to straighten. Chins lift. There's a quiet, collective intake of breath, not of fear, but of renewed attention, a willingness to listen, truly listen, to asterisk their queen speaking their noise language. The intricate inflections, the familiar rhythms of the ancient tongue wrap around you, warm and encompassing, like a cloak woven from centuries of shared experience. It's a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal Roman letters, the venomous foreign propaganda. This is raw, unadulterated belonging. You find yourself leaning forward, drawn into the magnetic field of her words. The air, once thick with apprehension, now pulses with a fragile, powerful hope. It's a battle being fought, not with swords, but with the purest form of connection, language. Her voice, echoing off the ancient walls, is not just a call to arms, but a call to remember, to believe, to stand together. You realize, in that moment, the immense, almost revolutionary power of a ruler who truly understands and speaks the heart of her people, not just their minds. It's a reminder that authenticity, especially in moments of great crisis, can be the most potent weapon of all. You feel the sharp, invigorating bite of sea salt on your lips, carried on a gust of wind that whips through your hair and stings your eyes. It's a clean, bracing taste, a stark contrast to the dust and incense of Alexandria, a taste that screams of open ocean and limitless horizons. The sun, a blazing orb, reflects off the endless expanse of the Mediterranean, turning the surface into a dazzling, shifting tapestry of light. Beneath your feet, the deck shudders and groans, a living thing fighting against the relentless pull of the current. You're standing on the main deck of the flagship, the beating heart of a formidable armada, a wooden fortress bristling with purpose. The air is thick with the scent of tar, sweat, and the faint, sweet smell of fresh-cut timber, mingling with the ever-present brine. Ropes creak under tension, sails snap and billow overhead like gigantic white wings, eager to catch the wind. The sheer scale of the fleet surrounding you is awe-inspiring. Hundreds of vessels, stretching as far as the eye can see, their oars rising and falling in hypnotic unison, 1,000 synchronized movements churning the turquoise water into a frothing, determined wake. Then comes the heave. A massive, undeniable surge from beneath you, the entire ship lurching upwards, then plunging downwards into the trough of a wave. You instinctively grip the rough, weathered rail, feeling the splintered wood dig into your palm. Your stomach lurches with the motion, a visceral reminder of the immense power of the sea, and the fragile nature of anything floating upon it. The ship, for all its majesty and might, feels momentarily vulnerable, a tiny speck against the vastness. You look around, catching the faces of the sailors and soldiers. Their expressions are a mix of stoic professionalism, fierce determination, and a subtle underlying tension. A grizzled centurion, his face etched with sun and salt, steadies himself against a mast, his eyes scanning the horizon, an unblinking gaze that seems to pierce through the shimmering heat haze. He doesn't betray a hint of fear, but the way his hand rests on the hilt of his gladius speaks volumes about the stakes. The rhythmic thump of oars, the shouts of the rowmasters echoing across the water, the flap of the royal standard at the masthead, it all combines into a symphony of purpose, a prelude to conflict. You feel the raw power of this assembled force, a tangible manifestation of a queen's last gamble, pushing out into the unknown. The salt spray hits your face, cold and invigorating, a baptism into this momentous journey. This is the ultimate confrontation, a turning point where diplomacy has failed, and words have been replaced by the blunt, uncompromising language of war. You stand on the precipice of history, feeling the grand, powerful heave of the flagship, carrying not just men and arms, but the hopes and fears of an entire empire. It's a terrifying, exhilarating moment, a plunge into the unknown, where the bite of sea salt on your tongue tastes of both destiny and inevitable sacrifice. The sheer, overwhelming power of this moment, This desperate, magnificent push against fate vibrates through your entire being. You feel it, a deep, resonant groan that rises from the very belly of your ship, then multiplies, echoing from hundreds of vessels around you. It's the collective cry of strained timbers, of ropes pulled taut, of wood grinding against wood. This isn't a single sound. It's a symphony of relentless effort, the low, powerful thrum of 1,000 oars biting into the water, then lifting, dripping, before plunging back in unison. It vibrates up through the deck beneath your feet, a constant, insistent rhythm that settles deep in your chest, mimicking the beat of your own heart. You stand at the rail, gripping the cool, rough wood as the flagship cleaves through the waves. The air around you is thick, with the damp, salty spray, mixed with the sharp scent of raw timber and the metallic tang of sweat from the rowers below. You can almost taste the exertion, the sheer brute force propelling this massive armada forward. The sun, a pale, hazy disk in the distance, casts a diffused, almost ethereal light over the scene, making the immense scale even more profound. You turn your gaze, and there it is, a living, moving forest on the water. Masts, tall and straight, pierce the sky, their sails, now furled or partially deployed, forming a dense, chaotic canopy. Beneath them, the long, rhythmic sweep of thousands of oars creates a mesmerizing, intricate pattern, 1,000 glistening arms rising and falling with hypnotic precision. Each oar is a branch, each mast a trunk, all moving with a terrifying, unified purpose across the endless blue expanse. You catch a glimpse into the open oar ports of a nearby trireme. Rowers, stripped to the waist, their muscles coiling and releasing, pull in perfect synchronicity. You see the strained set of their jaws, the sheen of sweat on their backs, the unwavering focus in their eyes. There's no wasted motion, no hesitation. They are simply extensions of the ship, bound to its rhythm, their individual identities subsumed by the relentless demands of the collective. The horizon itself seems consumed by this vast organic mass of wood and men. You feel a strange awe, a mixture of exhilaration and a chilling understanding of the sheer destructive potential embodied in this moving forest. The constant, repetitive splash and pull of the oars, the endless groan of the timber, creates an almost hypnotic state. It's the sound of destiny being forced, of an empire pushing its will upon the indifferent sea. Your fingers trace the rough grain of the wooden rail, feeling the vibration of that immense, collective effort. This isn't just a fleet. It's a monument to ambition, a last, desperate gamble sailing towards an unknown fate. The forest on the water moves with an unstoppable momentum, each groan of the oars a lament, a prayer, or a defiant roar. It's a raw, visceral experience, being part of this immense, living machine, hurtling towards a confrontation that will determine the course of history. You understand now profoundly that some struggles are so vast, so all-encompassing, that the individual disappears, becoming merely another limb in the grand, groaning, relentless advance. You feel the damp cold seep into your bones, a pervasive chill utterly unlike the dry heat of Egypt. It's a Greek winter, raw and biting, carrying the sharp scent of wet earth and distant pine, mingled with the briny tang of a restless gray sea. Each breath you take feels heavy, cold, and moist, catching in your throat as a shiver works its way up your spine. The thin woolen cloak wrapped around you feels woefully inadequate, offering little defense against the penetrating cold that seems to cling to everything. You find yourself navigating a makeshift camp. The ground beneath your worn boots, a treacherous mix of mud and frozen ruts. The tents, hastily erected and sagging, offer scant protection from the relentless elements. You press your gloved hands together, trying to rub some warmth back into your numb fingers, the chill seeping even through the worn leather. The air inside these temporary shelters is thick with the smell of damp canvas, stale cooking fires, and the nervous energy of exhausted, anxious men. As you pick your way through the narrow pathways between the tents, your eyes catch on a discarded banner, half buried in the mud. It's a piece of once magnificent silk, its vibrant colors now faded and stained by countless rains and endless days. You bend down, the cold seeping into your knees through your trousers, and pull it free from the clinging earth. The fabric, once smooth and luxurious, feels coarse and brittle in your hands. You notice a long, jagged tear, running from edge to edge, and as you gently test its strength, a single thread comes loose, then another, the intricate weave beginning its slow, undeniable unraveling. It's like watching a cherished memory fray, piece by delicate piece, until only fragments remain. You feel a profound sense of loss, watching the silk give way so easily. It's a small detail, this fragile, dissolving fabric, yet it mirrors a larger, more devastating truth unfolding all around you. The grand plans, the confident declarations, the very fabric of an empire's ambition, now seem to be coming apart at the seams, thread by relentless thread. Under the harsh reality of this foreign land, you look up, scanning the faces of the soldiers huddled around a sputtering fire, their shoulders hunched against the biting cold and the gnawing anxiety. Their expressions are grim, haunted by a weariness that wasn't there mere days ago. You see a man trying to mend a tear in his own tunic, his needle clumsy in his frozen fingers, his efforts almost futile against the persistent decay that seems to be consuming everything. The wind picks up, a low, mournful whistle through the sparse, skeletal trees, rustling the tattered silk in your hand. You feel the cold sting of a stray raindrop on your cheek, then another. The world around you seems to be dissolving into a bleak gray expanse, losing its shape, its coherence. The unraveling isn't just in the silk. It's in the very atmosphere, in the sagging morale of the men, in the chilling realization that all that was once tightly woven is now coming undone. It's a cold, hard lesson. Even the strongest threads, given enough time and enough pressure, will eventually fray, leaving behind only fragmented echoes of what once was. The damp cold of this Greek winter feels like the very breath of an ending, a slow, inevitable unmaking, carrying with it the quiet despair of a gamble lost. You feel the dry, hacking cough before you see its source, rattling through the crowded tent like a drumbeat of despair. It's accompanied by a heavy, cloying stench, a mix of fevered sweat, unwashed bodies, and the sharp metallic tang of sickness clinging to the damp canvas walls. The air itself feels thick, stale, as if all the vital energy has been slowly sucked out of it, leaving behind only the residue of illness and exhaustion. Each breath you take is shallow, tinged with a faint, sour taste that seems to coat the back of your tongue. You navigate through the low-slung tents, your feet sinking slightly into the churned mud, each step a squelching reminder of the misery underfoot. The cold dampness of the Greek winter is everywhere, but here, inside these canvas confines, It amplifies the suffering. Huddled forms lie on makeshift beds of straw, their faces pale and drawn, eyes glassy and unfocused with fever. A medic, his own face etched with profound weariness, moves between them, his touch gentle on a brow, his expression grim and burdened. You notice the sheer number of idle hands, once strong and purposeful, now reduced to shivering bundles beneath threadbare blankets, their polished weapons lying uselessly beside them, gathering a fine film of condensation. The constant soundscape of the camp is no longer just the general bustle. Now it's punctuated by groans, shallow, ragged breaths, and the persistent, rattling coughs. This heavy quiet isn't the silence of peace or rest. It's the tense stillness of deep frustration, a palpable, simmering impatience that feels as oppressive as the illness itself. You hear low, muttered complaints, quickly hushed when a superior officer passes, but the sentiment is clear. They are stuck, waiting, decaying from within. You watch a soldier, seemingly healthy, but his eyes burning with an unspoken torment, pacing restlessly outside his tent. He kicks repeatedly at a loose stone, his movements sharp, almost aggressive, a restless energy that can find no outlet. His gaze constantly scans the dull gray sky, then sweeps across the muddy camp, searching for a sign, any sign, of movement, of purpose, of an end to this stagnant misery. His fingers fidget with the strap of his sword, a nervous, repetitive gesture. The sickness isn't just a physical ailment, it's a creeping malaise of the spirit, infecting everyone. The inability to act, to fight, to simply do something, gnaws at them all, whether fevered or not. You feel the collective sigh of weariness and agitation, a heavy exhalation that seems to pull more oxygen out of the already stale air. There's a desperation in the furtive glances exchanged, a silent question hanging unspoken between them. How much longer can this enduring, suffocating inaction possibly endure? The very ground beneath you feels weighted down by this interminable waiting, this festering stagnation that threatens to break their spirit before any enemy blade. It's a bitter truth, isn't it, how sometimes the most formidable adversary isn't a charging army or a cunning general, but the slow, insidious decay of waiting. The relentless, suffocating siege of stagnation that erodes the spirit and saps the will long before any blade can touch the flesh. You feel it, a persistent, sour taste at the back of your tongue, like stale, poorly made wine, or perhaps the metallic tang of old anxieties. It lingers, an unpleasant undercurrent beneath the scent of damp earth and flickering lamp oil that fills the stifling tent. This taste isn't from anything you've consumed, but from the thick, heavy air itself, an atmosphere saturated with prolonged indecision, a waiting that stretches endlessly. You sit on a low stool, the rough wood pressing against your legs, feeling the dull ache in your muscles from hours of unchanging posture. Outside, the Greek winter continues its relentless chill, but inside this command tent, a different kind of cold has settled, the cold of inaction. The flapping of the canvas walls, once a lively sound, now seems tedious, a monotonous drumbeat marking the slow, agonizing passage of time. Every minute feels stretched, devoid of purpose, blending into a bland, indistinguishable expanse. Your eyes drift across the faces of the commanders and advisors around you. No one speaks. Their expressions are tight, drawn, a mixture of frustrated exhaustion and a kind of blank resignation. You see a man absently tracing patterns in the condensation on a polished bronze shield, his gaze fixed on nothing. Another picks at a loose thread on his tunic, his movements repetitive, almost involuntary. A physical manifestation of the dullness that has seized the room. The air feels heavy, not with smoke, but with unspoken questions, with paths not taken, with the oppressive weight of opportunities slowly, irrevocably slipping away. You instinctively reach for a piece of dried fruit from a forgotten bowl, but the very thought of its sweetness feels wrong, out of place in this environment. The sourness on your tongue persists, a constant reminder of the grim, bitter reality. You feel a growing restlessness, a nervous energy that yearns for movement, for a command, any command, to break the suffocating stasis. This isn't a strategic pause. It's a paralyzing hesitation, and it's slowly draining the life from everything. The only sound is the occasional, almost imperceptible shift of weight, the soft rustle of a garment, or a deep, quiet sigh. Each sound seems magnified, a tiny disruption in the pervasive dullness. You watch as a map, meticulously drawn and covered in strategic markings, lies spread out on the central table, untouched for hours. Its lines and symbols, meant to guide action, now seem mocking in their inactivity. It's a blueprint for a future that remains perpetually out of reach. Caught in the endless cycle of deliberation, you can almost feel the collective spirit of the men outside, the soldiers in their own cold, damp tents, experiencing the same crushing monotony, the same gnawing uncertainty. Their morale, once fueled by the roar of the lion and the gleam of gold, is now being slowly eroded, not by battle, but by this suffocating, endless waiting. The sour taste of indecision, a palpable sensation, clings to your entire being, making every moment feel heavy, unproductive, and bitterly wasted. It's a stark revelation how utterly destructive a lack of clear direction can be, turning potential into rot, hope into a weary, listless surrender. You feel it, a chilling gust of wind that bites at your exposed skin, carrying with it the sharp scent of damp earth and distant, smoldering fires. But it's not just the cold that makes you shiver. Through the mournful howl of the wind, you hear it, a faint yet unmistakable echo of laughter. It's not joyous or spontaneous. This laughter is drawn out, deliberate, almost theatrical, a low, mocking sound that seems to ripple through the very air, carrying with it a smug, unsettling confidence. It feels like a barb, aimed directly at this very position, this very moment of anxious waiting. You're standing on a windswept ridge, the rough, cold stone beneath your feet unforgiving. Below, shrouded in the shifting mists of the Greek dawn, lies the enemy encampment, the source of that unsettling sound. Your gut tightens, a cold knot forming where the mockery has landed. You instinctively pull your woolen cloak tighter around you, feeling the coarse fabric rasp against your cheek, but it does little to ward off the chill that has nothing to do with the weather. You glance at the figures around you, the remaining generals, their faces etched with a profound blend of exhaustion and grim determination. They too have heard it. You watch as one, a grizzled veteran with a perpetually stern jaw, clenches his fists at his sides, his knuckles white. His gaze snaps from the distant camp to another general standing nearby, a younger man, whose expression now holds a barely perceptible smirk, a flicker of, "I told you so," that instantly poisons the already tense air. The silence that follows the laughter is not empty. It's thick, charged with unspoken accusations. You can practically feel the friction radiating between the two men. The older general takes a heavy step forward, his boot grinding against a loose stone. It's not a direct confrontation, but a deliberate encroachment on the younger man's space, a physical manifestation of his simmering anger. The younger general responds with a subtle shift of his weight, his shoulders squaring, his eyes meeting the older man's in a challenging stare that holds too much pride, too little deference. The wind whips up again, tearing at the tattered banners of the camp, carrying the bitter taste of defeat and the metallic tang of unfulfilled promises. You feel the heavy, oppressive weight of their unspoken words, the clashing egos, the bitter resentments. Every strained breath, every rigid posture, every quick, sharp glance between them amplifies the vulnerability of your position. The enemy's mockery, far from uniting them, seems to have driven a deeper wedge, exacerbating the internal fractures. You instinctively press your back against the rough stone of the parapet, seeking solidity in a world suddenly shifting and unstable. The friction between these generals, a silent, corrosive force, feels more dangerous in this moment than any distant enemy. It's a profound, chilling realization. Sometimes, the greatest threats don't come from beyond the walls, but from the fissures that run deep within, slowly, relentlessly tearing apart the very foundations of resolve. That mocking laughter, now a faint echo, feels like a dark prophecy, whispering of a fate sealed not by external force but by internal decay. You feel the dry, rasping texture of your own tongue against the roof of your mouth, a sensation that screams of thirst, but beneath it, a deeper, more profound emptiness gnaws at your gut. It's a hollow, ceaseless ache, a constant companion that has grown from a mild discomfort to a dull, throbbing presence. The air in the cramped alleyway smells not of bread or roasting meat, but of stale dampness, fear, and something almost metallic, the ghost of hunger itself, permeating everything. You press your palm against the cold, rough stone wall, seeking some anchor as your vision swims momentarily. The streets, once vibrant with the cries of merchants, are now eerily quiet, save for the shuffling of a few gaunt figures. Their eyes, sunken and hollow, dart nervously, not at each other, but at the empty baskets, the closed doorways, the very air, as if searching for a forgotten morsel. There's a desperate energy in their slow, measured movements, a stark contrast to the usual bustle. You see a child, too young to fully comprehend, clutching a tiny, smooth stone as if it were a piece of food, bringing it to their mouth with a vacant, repetitive motion. You clutch the small, rough canvas pouch hidden beneath your tunic, its lightness a constant, chilling reminder. You know what it holds. You've felt it, dozens of times, the individual, hard kernels. You dip your thumb and forefinger inside, carefully, almost reverently. You feel it. A single grain of wheat, small, resilient, a tiny capsule of life. Its texture is firm, unyielding, a stark contrast to the softness you crave. You bring it to your nose, inhaling deeply, trying to conjure the scent of bread, of a full harvest, but it offers only the faint, earthy smell of dryness, of dust. The whispers of the blockade are no longer whispers. They are a crushing reality. Every ship on the horizon is an enemy. Every distant sound is a reminder of the iron fist clamped around your city. This isn't just about fighting on a battlefield. It's about a slower, more agonizing siege, one fought with the relentless weapon of emptiness. The city holds its breath, not in anticipation of a charge, but in a collective, desperate hope for sustenance that never arrives. The very air tastes of this futility, this slow, inevitable decline. You close your fingers around that single grain, feeling its precious, fragile existence. It's not just food, it's a symbol of dwindling time, of last chances, of the profound, brutal truth that even an empire can be brought to its knees by the absence of something as simple, as fundamental as a single grain of wheat. The silent, ceaseless gnawing in your belly feels like a final, desperate countdown. It's a terrible, aching stillness, this waiting for the world to simply run out. You feel the wind, hot and dry, scour your face as you climb the last few steps to the highest battlement. But it's not the heat that steals your breath. It's the profound, aching silence stretching out before you. No distant rumble of approaching fleets, no hopeful shouts of returning fishing boats. Nothing. Only the steady, monotonous drone of the wind. A sound that, in its emptiness, feels more deafening than any battle cry. It carries the faint, lingering smell of desperation, a subtle metallic tang that now seems to cling to the very air you breathe. You lean against the rough, sun-baked stone of the parapet, feeling the grit under your palms, the ancient rock warm to the touch. Your eyes, squinting against the blinding glare, sweep across the vast, unbroken curve of the horizon. It's a cruel trick of the light, isn't it? The sea, an expanse of brilliant, shimmering azure, meets the sky, a vast, cloudless dome of the same impossible blue. They merge seamlessly, a perfect, unbroken line that, instead of promising freedom or escape, feels like an inescapable prison. You are standing inside a magnificent, terrifying trap of blue and sky. You look down at the city, sprawling below, a network of white and ochre under the relentless sun. From this height, the bustling marketplace and the grand palace seem tiny, fragile, held captive by the immense emptiness beyond its walls. You recall the whispered hopes, the desperate prayers that a friendly sail might appear, a distant flutter of white against the blue. Now, there is only this overwhelming, oppressive silence, punctuated by the relentless sigh of the wind. The silence is not peaceful. It's a living, breathing thing, heavy with unfulfilled promises and the suffocating weight of being utterly cut off. You see a few other figures on distant rooftops, their outlines stark against the endless blue. They too are motionless, their gazes fixed on the same barren expanse. You can almost feel their collective frustration, their gnawing fear, their dwindling hope echoing across the rooftops. There's a universality to this silent vigil, a shared recognition of the trap they find themselves in. The vast, serene beauty of the world outside has become an enemy, a barrier designed to starve them into submission. The sun continues its slow, unyielding arc, beating down with a fierce indifference. You feel the heat radiating from the stone, a dry, draining warmth that offers no comfort. Every minute spent scanning that empty horizon, every second listening to the wind's hollow sigh, feels like another grain of sand slipping through an hourglass that is rapidly emptying. This isn't a siege of booming catapults or crashing waves. It's a siege of stillness, of absence, of an invisible wall built from infinite blue. You find yourself pressing your forehead against the cool stone of the parapet, feeling the rough texture, seeking a grounding in the tangible world against the dizzying, treacherous vastness. The absolute emptiness of that horizon is a stark, chilling declaration. It's a silence that screams of impending doom, a trap woven from the very elements that once promised freedom. You realize how truly vulnerable an empire can be when its grand ambitions are reduced to nothing but a desperate, silent gaze across an empty sea, waiting for a savior that will never come. Swallowed by the overwhelming blue, you feel the sharp, insistent prick of the stylus on the wax tablet, a precise, metallic scrape that vibrates through the heavy stillness of the room. It's a sound both delicate and utterly definitive. A faint, sweet scent of beeswax rises, mingling with the dry smell of old papyrus and the lingering aroma of lamp oil. You watch, utterly transfixed, as the gleaming bronze tip digs into the soft, yielding surface, shaping angular, determined Greek characters. Each stroke is deliberate, yet you detect a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor in the hand guiding it, a telltale sign of immense pressure and the exhaustion of countless sleepless nights. You are in a small, private chamber, cloaked in the deep shadows cast by a single flickering oil lamp. The flame dances, making the intricate patterns on the richly embroidered tapestries seem to writhe and shift. The air feels heavy, not with humidity, but with unspoken fears, with the crushing weight of impending fate and the knowledge that every breath is a countdown. No one else speaks. The only sound is the rhythmic, delicate scratch of the stylus, a constant, fragile counterpoint to the thunderous, brutal reality pressing in from beyond these palace walls. Your gaze is fixed on the tablet. You can almost feel the cold, smooth texture of the wax, the slight resistance it offers to the stylus, each engraved line a permanent, unalterable decision. The words forming are not for a simple decree or a casual correspondence with an ally. You know this is a message of ultimate consequence, a desperate plea, a defiant challenge, or perhaps a final, heartbreaking testament, a last throw of the dice for a kingdom clinging precariously to its final moments. You see the brief pause, a moment where the stylus hovers, almost imperceptibly above the wax, as if the very air resists the formation of these momentous words, then plunges down again with renewed grim resolve, carving out an indelible mark. You feel a tightening in your chest, a profound sense of finality settling over you, cold and absolute. Every carefully carved letter on that tablet represents a choice, a path now chosen, irrevocably, sealing possibilities and closing doors. The stillness in the room is absolute, broken only by that focused, relentless scratching sound, each scrape echoing the relentless march of time. You notice the deep crease between the writer's brows, the slight pursing of their lips, revealing the monumental, agonizing effort of distillation. How to condense an entire world of hope, fear, and ambition into a few precise, immutable marks that will travel across a hostile sea. This isn't merely writing, it's the physical manifestation of a last, audacious gamble, a desperate reach across the void. The small, unassuming wax tablet, usually a humble tool for everyday record-keeping, has become the vessel for an empire's final, desperate plea, a fragile testament to its defiant spirit. You realize, with a chilling clarity, how fragile hope can be, how utterly much rests on so few words, carved into such a seemingly insignificant surface. The shape of that final gamble is now taking form, etched into the wax, a silent, powerful testament to a pivotal moment when all other options have vanished, leaving only this stark, solitary act of desperate communication against the relentless, unforgiving tide of history. You feel the unexpected chill of the breastplate against your fingers, a cold, unyielding curve of polished bronze. It's not the raw, utilitarian metal of the barracks, but something far more elaborate, intricately embossed with images of eagles and victorious chariots. Yet, despite the meticulous artistry, you perceive its immense weight, a physical burden that feels almost suffocating. You are in a high-ceilinged antechamber, the air, thick with the faint metallic scent of the armor itself, mingled with the dry aroma of aged leather and human sweat. A silent testament to the effort involved in simply standing encased within it. You watch as a servant struggles to adjust a buckle, his brow furrowed with strain, the leather straps groaning under the tension. The armor is not just heavy, it restricts movement, forcing a rigid, almost unnatural posture, a display of power rather than practical protection. As the servant steps back, the helmet is lifted and placed carefully. You see the glint off the plume of dyed horsehair, a vibrant red that catches the light from the flickering oil lamps, a stark, almost defiant splash of color against the dimness. You notice the man within the armor, a general, perhaps, or a high-ranking officer. His face is pale, his lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes, peering out from beneath the helmet's brow, hold a flicker of something else. It's not genuine confidence, not the fierce fire of a man ready to charge into battle. Instead, it's a strained, almost desperate light, a forced optimism that doesn't quite reach his pupils. You recognize it immediately, the glint of false hope, polished to a shine, worn like the armor itself, a necessary illusion to maintain not just for others, but perhaps, most critically, for himself. You feel a profound sense of unease, a hollowness in your gut that resonates with the palpable strain in the room. The polished metal gleams, reflecting distorted images of the anxious faces around you, each reflection a tiny, warped mirror of uncertainty. The grandeur of the armor, designed to inspire awe and project invincibility, now feels like a hollow shell, a desperate act of theater played out against a backdrop of crumbling reality. You hear the faint creak of the leather as the man shifts his weight, the sound amplified in the hushed chamber, a small, weary protest from the burdened materials. The air itself seems to thicken with unspoken questions, with the awareness of the immense gap between the shining ceremonial display and the grim, unyielding truth lurking outside. This isn't preparation for triumph. It's a defiant costume for an impending tragedy, a last desperate attempt to conjure victory through sheer force of will and outward appearance. The heaviness of the armor isn't just metal. It's the crushing weight of expectation, of a desperate gamble that everyone in the room instinctively knows might already be lost. Yet they cling to that glint, that ephemeral shimmer of false hope, because in these final, desperate moments it is perhaps the only armor they have left. The sheer effort of maintaining such an illusion is almost as taxing as any physical battle, slowly draining the will, leaving behind only the cold, hard weight of reality. You feel it first, a subtle vibration that begins deep within the very stone beneath your feet, then rapidly escalates, making the air around you crackle with an unsettling energy. It's not an earthquake, not the familiar thrum of a distant army. This is something far more profound, an unearthly sound that rises from the depths of the city, a long, mournful wail that seems to scrape at the very edges of hearing. It begins as a low, resonant hum, then builds into a shimmering, high-pitched lament, neither animal nor human, but imbued with an ancient, unbearable sorrow. It slices through the relative quiet of the palace halls, piercing the perfumed air with a cold, metallic tang that makes the hair on your arms stand on end. You instinctively press your palm against the cool, rough stone of the corridor wall, seeking an anchor as the sound washes over you. The intricate carvings, usually so static, seem to pulse with the reverberation. You feel a tremor in the air, not a physical shaking but a profound atmospheric disturbance, as if the very fabric of existence is stretched thin, ready to tear. The oil lamps flickering in their niches cast dancing shadows that appear to writhe with a sudden agitated life. You see the palace servants, usually so composed, freeze in place, their eyes wide and white, their faces draining of color. A young woman carrying a tray of fruit drops it with a soft thud, the ripe figs rolling across the mosaic floor like abandoned jewels. No one moves to retrieve them. Their gazes are fixed on an unseen point beyond the archways, their mouths slightly agape, breathing shallowly, as if the very act of exhaling might deepen the chilling sound. You catch the glint of raw terror in their eyes, a shared, primal fear of something vast and incomprehensible. The sound swells to an agonizing crescendo, a cry of profound farewell, of immense power withdrawing, leaving behind a hollow, aching void. You feel an inexplicable lightness, as if a great, protective weight has suddenly been lifted, not with relief, but with a terrifying sense of abandonment. It's the sound of a sacred boundary being crossed, a powerful presence departing, leaving the mortal world exposed and vulnerable. A distinct chill pervades the air, not of temperature, but of an absence, a sudden, vast emptiness where something vital once resided. Then, as abruptly as it began, the sound recedes, fading back into the deep, echoing silence, leaving behind only the frantic, stuttering beats of your own heart. The tremor in the air slowly dissipates, but its afterimage lingers, an invisible scar on the atmosphere. You find yourself listening intently, straining your ears for any residual echo, but there is only the resumed, hushed breathing of the fearful servants, and the distant, almost muffled sounds of a city now truly afraid. The lingering scent of frankincense and myrrh, usually comforting, now feels cloying, heavy with a new, terrifying meaning. It's an almost physical pain, this sense of profound spiritual severance, a chilling confirmation that the divine favor, the ancient protection, has indeed lifted, leaving a vulnerable, exposed reality in its wake. The world feels suddenly much colder, much darker, and terrifyingly alone. You feel it first, the clammy, cold sweat clinging to your skin, a fine film that cools rather than comforts. It prickles your forehead, dampens the hair at your temples, and traces a chilling path down your spine. You lie perfectly still, unblinking in the suffocating darkness of your bedchamber, the rough linen sheets tangled around your legs, now feeling damp and oppressive instead of familiar. The air itself feels thin, heavy, carrying the lingering ghost of fear from the unearthly sound that echoed through the palace hours ago. Your throat is dry, tasting faintly metallic, a flavor that seems to accompany profound dread. You try to slow your breathing, to calm the frantic hammering in your chest, but it's a losing battle. You lift a hand, bringing your fingers to your neck, pressing them lightly against the thrumming artery. There it is, the frantic, insistent thump, thump, thump of your own mortal pulse rushing beneath your fingertips. It's a stark, visceral reminder of your fragile humanity, a relentless beat that screams of vulnerability, of a life clinging to existence in a world suddenly stripped of its divine protections. The rhythm is too fast, too desperate, a frantic drum call within your own body. Outside, the night is a vast, echoing emptiness. The usual comforting sounds of a sleeping city, the distant bark of a dog, the gentle creak of a boat in the harbor, the occasional watchman's call, are utterly absent. Or perhaps you simply cannot hear them over the tumultuous roar within your own ears. The profound silence, once a solace, now feels menacing, an amplifier for your every anxious thought. You imagine the millions of stars, indifferent and cold, scattered across a sky that now seems vast and uncaring, no longer watched over by benevolent deities. The chill that runs through you isn't just from the damp sweat. It's the cold, hard reality of an uncertain future, exposed and utterly alone. You think of the others, perhaps similarly awake, grappling with their own racing pulses, their own gnawing fears. The collective terror from the sound of the god's departure has left an indelible mark, a shared wound on the city's soul. You press your face into the cool pillow, trying to bury the racing thoughts, but the image of that vast spiritual void, once filled by a protective presence, looms in the darkness. The feel of your own pulse, so utterly, terrifyingly mortal, is the only undeniable truth in this long, haunted night. It reminds you that some absences are so immense, they leave a hollow that vibrates within your very being, forcing you to confront the raw, beating heart of your own existence in a world suddenly, terrifyingly, without its gods. You hear it, the sickening crack of wood, a sound like a giant tree splitting down its trunk, but amplified 100-fold, then repeated, closer and closer. It's followed by a violent, tearing screech, then the dull, heavy thud of immense timbers giving way, groaning in protest as they are ripped apart. You cling desperately to the listing deck, the rough, wet wood of the rail digging painfully into your fingers, as the entire ship shudders violently beneath you. The sheer force of the impact sends a bone-jarring jolt through your whole body, throwing you hard against the solid, splintered mast. The air, already thick with the salty spray of the churning sea, instantly fills with the sharp, acrid scent of burning tar and freshly splintered wood, mixed with the choking, metallic smell of smoke that stings your eyes, making them water uncontrollably. Then comes the roar. Not the triumphant roar of a charging lion, nor the unified roar of men in battle, but the terrifying, all-consuming roar of a naval inferno. It's a hungry, living sound, a deep, guttural growl that rips through the cacophony of battle, swallowing the individual screams of men, the shrill clash of steel, and the frantic, desperate commands of officers. Flames, a vivid, hungry orange and blood red, leap wildly into the blackened sky, coiling around the intricate rigging, wrapping themselves around stout masts like monstrous, consuming serpents. You feel the intense, searing heat on your exposed skin, a wave of oppressive warmth that makes your lungs ache and your throat constrict with every shallow, desperate breath. Around you, the world has dissolved into pure, unfiltered chaos. Men, once disciplined soldiers in proud formation, are scrambling wildly, their faces smeared beyond recognition with soot and raw terror. You see a legionary, his usually stoic expression now contorted in a silent, agonizing scream, wrestling futilely with a burning rope, the thick smoke blinding him, rendering his efforts useless. Another soldier stumbles past you, his tunic and hair hideously aflame, heading with a desperate, lunging dive for the rail, preferring the dark, churning water below to the consuming fire. The once proud fleet, stretching majestically across the sea, is now nothing but a scene of utter devastation, a rapidly diminishing graveyard of burning timber and sinking hulls. You cough violently, the harsh, burning smoke scraping your throat raw, leaving a bitter taste of ash and utter desperation on your tongue. The deck beneath your feet tilts violently again, the lurch sending you sprawling, throwing you off balance onto the scorching wood. You can see ships, mere yards away, completely engulfed, their entire structures consumed by the unholy blaze. Their painted hulls, once symbols of imperial might and careful craftsmanship, are now blazing funeral pyres, masts crashing down with ear-splitting cracks that echo across the water. A mournful knell. The sea itself seems to boil around the inferno, reflecting the hellish orange-red glow of the burning fleet, punctuated by dark, churning patches where entire ships have already vanished silently beneath the waves, taking their crews with them. The cries of men are everywhere, an unbearable symphony of agony, some defiant in their last moments, some despairing, but all are slowly, relentlessly being consumed by the relentless, hungry roar of the fire. The once ordered ranks, the proud, imposing formation, are utterly shattered, replaced by isolated pockets of desperate, futile struggle, each fighting a losing, impossible battle against the elemental fury unleashed upon them. You feel the scorching heat on your face, the gritty salt spray mixed with falling ash, the profound, gut-wrenching realization that this is no longer a battle to be won. This is a terrifying, all-encompassing catastrophe to be somehow impossibly endured. You feel it, an immediate searing assault on your lungs, the choking fumes of burning tar and wet timber, thick and acrid, clawing at the back of your throat. Each desperate gasp for air brings only more of the metallic, bitter taste of smoke, mixing with the biting sea salt on your lips. You cough, a dry, racking spasm that leaves your chest aching and your vision swimming, the air itself a noxious, suffocating blanket that clings to your skin and hair. The heat is immense, not just from the sun, but radiating in waves from the blazing ships around you, an oppressive, suffocating furnace that sucks all moisture from your body. You stumble across the reeling deck, feeling the scorching wood beneath your boots. The air shimmers with the heat, distorting the scene into a horrifying, surreal tableau. Your eyes, stinging and watering, struggle to pierce the dense black smoke billowing upwards, coiling into monstrous, suffocating clouds that blot out the sky, painting the horizon in shades of ash and desperate orange. Every breath is a battle, a conscious effort to fight against the invisible enemy that seeks to steal the very air from your lungs. Then, through the haze, you see it. A horrifying, vibrant crimson wash on the waves. It's not just the reflection of the inferno. No, you realize, with a sickening lurch of your stomach, that the water itself is tainted, stained with a deepening, spreading red. The blood of countless men, mingled with the flickering, fiery reflections of the burning armada, creates a grotesque tapestry of horror. The once blue Mediterranean, symbol of life and passage, has transformed into a churning, blood-soaked cauldron, a vast, liquid graveyard that seems to pulse with the dying light of an empire. You press your hand against the rough, splintered rail, seeking some stability as the ship lists violently. The wood is hot to the touch, almost blistering. Below, in the crimson-stained water, you catch glimpses of debris. Shattered shields, broken oars, and the bobbing, ghostly forms of men, some still clinging to fragments of wood, their faces pale against the gruesome backdrop. Their cries, muffled by the smoke and the crackling roar of the flames, are faint, desperate sounds swallowed by the immensity of the disaster. You watch as a Roman trireme, its hull still largely intact but now fully ablaze, slowly begins to sink, the crimson waters rising relentlessly to meet the consuming flames. It's a macabre dance between fire and water, each battling for dominion over the dying ship. The smoke plumes higher, carrying with it the sickening, oily scent of rendered fat. A new, horrifying layer to the stench of tar and burning wood. You feel a profound, chilling despair, a cold certainty settling in your gut that this chaos, this absolute devastation, is beyond any human power to control or contain. The air thickens with falling ash, gritty and abrasive, coating your tongue with a bitter charcoal dust. You feel the grit between your teeth, a persistent, grim reminder of the absolute destruction unfolding around you. The crimson wash on the waves seems endless, stretching to the horizon, a terrifying, silent testament to the scale of the defeat, painting the very face of the sea with the blood of thousands and the dying glow of a queen's last, desperate hope. It's a vision that will forever burn in your memory, a testament to how quickly ambition can turn to ash, and how profoundly a single moment of battle can alter the course of an entire world. The pervasive choking fumes, the terrifying crimson, these are the indelible marks of an irreversible end. You feel it, a sudden, sickening jolt that reverberates through the entire ship, rattling your teeth and slamming you forward against the rough planking of the deck. It's not the heave of a wave, not the impact of a ram. This is different, a brutal, metallic clang followed by a horrifying, grinding screech, like a beast tearing at raw flesh. The ship lurches violently to one side, held in an inescapable grip. Above you, a dark, monstrous shadow falls, and you glimpse it, a colossal iron claw, thick chains groaning under immense strain, its jagged, sharp prongs sunk deep into the wooden hull of your vessel. It's a Roman grappling hook, an extension of their ship, a brutal, unyielding hand reaching out to claim you. The air immediately fills with the acrid scent of scorched wood from the friction, mixed with the salty spray that kicks up from the churning water. You hear the shouts of men, but they are quickly drowned out by a terrifying new sound. The rapid, percussive crack, snap, thwack, asterisk of oars. Dozens, hundreds of them, caught in the sudden, violent lurch, are breaking apart, splintering with bone-chilling force. The cacophony is immense, a chorus of wooden screams as mighty timbers are ripped from their sockets, some flipping upwards to strike unfortunate rowers, others simply disintegrating into shattered fragments that splash into the turbulent water below. You scramble to your feet, your legs unsteady on the canted deck, feeling the coarse grain of the wood against your hands as you push yourself up. Through the chaos you see the rowers, their faces contorted in raw, primal fear, struggling desperately in their benches. Some are pinned, their limbs caught beneath snapping shafts, their cries a visceral counterpoint to the relentless destruction of the oars. The synchronized power that once propelled your ship forward is utterly broken, replaced by a desperate, flailing struggle for survival. As you look up, you meet the gaze of a Roman marine, now mere yards away, poised on the deck of the grappling enemy ship. His face is grim, his eyes burning with a cold, ruthless determination, utterly devoid of mercy. You see the glint of his polished gladius, already drawn, anticipating the boarding. The shock of the iron claw isn't just the physical impact. It's the sudden, chilling realization of utter helplessness, of being snared, bound, and dragged towards an inevitable, brutal confrontation. The chains of the grappling hook groan again, tightening their hold, pulling the two ships together with a terrifying, inexorable force. You feel the grinding of wood against wood as the hulls kiss, a violent, splintering embrace. The smell of fear, sharp and metallic, now overlays the scent of the sea and the burning tar from distant fires. This isn't a battle of strategy or grand maneuvers anymore. This is close quarters, desperate, hand-to-hand combat, made horrifyingly intimate by the iron claw that has eliminated all distance, all escape. The snapping of oars continues, a grim, rhythmic tally of lost mobility, lost hope, sealing your ship's fate. It's a sound that promises no quarter, no retreat, only the brutal, inescapable reality of being caught. You brace yourself, feeling the rough texture of your sword hilt, its cold metal a familiar weight in your trembling hand. The deck vibrates with the imminent impact of Roman boots, and you realize with a sickening clarity that the fight is no longer about winning the sea battle. It's about surviving the next few moments, caught in the unyielding embrace of the enemy's iron claw. The sheer, overwhelming force of this capture, the deafening sounds of splintering timber, leaves you with a profound sense of an end, not just for the ship, but for a greater ambition, now snagged and broken. You feel it, a raw, exhilarating gust of wind tearing at your tunic, whipping your hair across your face with unexpected force. It carries with it the sharp, clean scent of open sea, but also a lingering, acrid tang of distant smoke and burning timber that clings stubbornly to the air. The ship beneath your feet, no longer rocking with the impacts of battle, now cuts through the waves with a terrifying, almost unnatural speed, a desperate surge of power. This isn't the lumbering heave of a war galley. This is the lean, swift grace of a vessel in full flight, its sails taut, straining, catching every breath of wind. You cling to the rail, the smooth, worn wood cold beneath your palm, feeling the constant tremor of the ship as it slices through the water. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull is no longer a gentle lullaby, but a frantic, insistent beat, pushing you forward, away. Behind you, the horizon is an inferno, a towering wall of orange and black against the rapidly darkening sky. The screams, the shattering wood, the roar of the naval blaze, they are still there in your memory, but fading, becoming muted, swallowed by the relentless rush of the wind and the increasing distance. This escape feels profoundly unsettling, a stark, gut-wrenching contrast to the absolute devastation you've just witnessed. This is the unbearable lightness of flight, a speed that feels both liberating and utterly, terribly wrong. You turn your gaze, scanning the few faces around you on the stern. They are grim, etched with a mixture of shock, exhaustion, and a desperate, fleeting relief. No one speaks. Their eyes, wide and haunted, are fixed on the receding inferno, then quickly dart away, unable to bear the sight. You see a shipmate, his face still streaked with soot, his hands white-knuckled on a rope, his chest heaving with deep, ragged breaths. He catches your eye, a silent understanding passing between you, a shared burden of what was lost, what was abandoned. Then you see her. The Queen. She stands at the helm, or close to it. Her magnificent robes, once shimmering with gold, now windswept and stained, her hair unbound, streaming behind her like a dark banner. Her face, usually a mask of regal composure, is stark, devoid of pretense. You can't read a single emotion there. No triumph, no despair, just an absolute terrifying resolution. She isn't looking back at the burning fleet. Her eyes are fixed forward, on the vast, empty expanse of the sea, on the unseen horizon, as if already navigating a new, terrifying path. The wind, powerful and relentless, whips around her, a tangible force. It feels like Kobganga wind, the very breath of a queen's retreat, sweeping away not just her ship, but the very hopes and dreams of an empire. You feel the raw power of that wind, a cold, unyielding force pressing against you, propelling the ship ever faster, separating you from the chaos, from the burning end of everything. The sensation is both freeing and horrifying. There's a profound, chilling emptiness that settles in your gut, a realization that this speed, this separation, comes at an immeasurable cost. The sheer, overwhelming force of this retreat, the desolate wind, and the burning horizon, leaves you with a profound sense of loss, a chilling understanding that sometimes the most decisive action is not to fight, but to flee, carrying the weight of an entire shattered world in your wake. The silence of the escape, once you're far enough from the flames, feels more deafening than any explosion, a silent testament to a gamble lost, a destiny unwritten. The silence hits you first, a physical blow, more deafening than any explosion. It's not the restful quiet of a peaceful night, but a profound, aching absence of sound, a vacuum left by the screams and the splintering wood. The ship beneath your feet, no longer listing violently, now cuts through the waves with a monotonous, almost mournful rhythm. You feel the constant spray of sea salt on your face, cold and clean, yet it cannot wash away the lingering, acrid taste of smoke and tar that still coats your tongue, a bitter reminder of the inferno left behind. You stand at the stern, gripping the smooth, salt-worn rail, your knuckles white. The wind whips past your ears, a hollow, ceaseless sigh that seems to carry the ghosts of 1,000 defeated cries. Above, the sky is a vast, indifferent canvas of deepening twilight, slowly swallowing the last faint glow of the distant, burning wreckage. There's no triumphant fanfare, no frantic commands, only the relentless, rhythmic rush of the hull-cleaving water, a sound that now seems to emphasize the devastating emptiness. Your eyes sweep across the vast, unbroken expanse of the sea. It stretches to the horizon, a profound, terrifying blue-black, utterly devoid of sails, of life, of any sign of hope or rescue. This isn't the familiar, bustling Mediterranean of thriving trade and mighty fleets. This is the emptiness of the sea, an indifferent void that has swallowed thousands. An endless, watery grave that now reflects only the slow, mournful descent of night. It feels less like an open path and more like a boundless prison, a final, inescapable cage of water and sky. You look at the faces of the few remaining crew, huddled figures on the deck, their shoulders slumped, their gazes fixed on nothing in particular. Their expressions are blank, drained of all emotion, replaced by a profound, numb weariness. You see a young sailor, his face smeared with soot, his eyes wide and vacant, mechanically coiling a rope, his movements slow and devoid of purpose. Another stares fixedly at his hands, as if he's forgotten what they're meant to do. Their silence is as crushing as the seas, a collective admission of utter, irreversible defeat. You feel a profound, hollow ache in your chest, a chilling realization that everything you knew, everything you fought for, is now nothing but a memory dissolving into the smoke and the waves. The air itself feels heavy with this shared, unspoken grief. Each breath you take is shallow, tinged with the metallic tang of despair. The ship continues its relentless, solitary journey, a tiny, wounded speck against the immensity, carrying only the weight of its survival and the crushing burden of irreversible loss. The deafening silence of defeat settles around you, a cold, unyielding truth that penetrates deeper than any weapon. The emptiness of the sea, once a symbol of freedom, now feels like a vast, cold mirror, reflecting the hollow void within. It's a silence that screams of a final, irreversible ending, of a gamble lost, and a queen's dream drowned forever beneath the indifferent waves. You feel it, a raw, burning sensation in your throat, a foul, metallic taste that mixes with the lingering brine on your lips. It's the bitter taste of bile, a nauseating heave from deep within your gut, churning with the incessant roll of the ship. Your stomach lurches again, sending a wave of clammy sweat across your skin, already sticky with sea salt and the faint, acrid scent of distant smoke. You lean over the rail, the rough wood cool against your cheek, and gasp, trying to rid yourself of the pervasive, sickening flavor of absolute defeat. The sun has finally dipped below the horizon, taking with it the last vestiges of color, leaving the sky an oppressive, bruised purple. Shadows lengthen and deepen, rapidly swallowing the vast expanse of the sea. The wind, once a relentless force pushing you forward, now feels mournful, whispering secrets of what was lost, carrying the ghosts of screams on its chilly breath. You shiver, but it's not from the cooling air. It's a chill that penetrates deep into your bones, a profound sense of emptiness that mirrors the darkening world. The ship, once a proud vessel of war, now feels like a coffin, silently cutting through the increasingly dark water. Its sails, once billowing with purpose, are limp, catching only the barest whisper of wind, merely guiding you, not driving you. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull, once a steady cadence, now sounds like a relentless, somber drumbeat, marking the passage of an irreversible journey. There are no lights on the horizon, no constellations offering guidance, just a vast, terrifying blackness that seems to stretch into infinity. You glance at the figures huddled on the deck, indistinct shapes against the encroaching gloom. They are silent, immobile, their exhaustion palpable even in the dimming light. You see a sailor, his head bowed, his hands clasped over his knees, his entire posture radiating a profound, absolute surrender. Another sits against a mast, his eyes wide open, staring blankly into the encroaching darkness, as if trying to discern a future that no longer exists. No one attempts to speak, to offer comfort. The silence is too immense, too final. The bitter taste on your tongue persists, a constant sickening companion, reflecting the despair that has settled into every fiber of your being. This isn't just the coming of night. It's a profound, irreversible journey into shadow. The world, once vibrant and filled with possibility, now feels muted, indistinct, fading into an endless, terrifying void. This dark voyage is not merely about traversing the physical sea. It's about navigating the bleak, uncharted waters of a future devoid of hope, a kingdom without its crown, a queen without her realm. You close your eyes, but the images of the burning fleet, the crimson wash on the waves, are seared into your mind, haunting the darkness behind your lids. The bitter taste, the encroaching shadows, the endless, indifferent sea. These are the stark, undeniable realities of a gamble irrevocably lost, an empire plunged into a night from which there seems no dawn. It's a profound, aching understanding that some journeys are not towards a destination, but simply away from everything that once was, an irreversible descent into a shadow so deep it consumes all light, all hope, all future. You feel it, a subtle vibration under your bare feet, a faint, rhythmic thud that pulses through the very foundations of the city. It's too regular to be an earthquake, too heavy to be mere footsteps. It begins as a low, almost imperceptible rumble, then slowly, relentlessly, builds in intensity, sending a chilling tremor up your legs and into your gut. You know, with a sickening certainty, that this is the tremor of distant rams, battering against the outer walls, a relentless, methodical drumbeat of impending doom. The air around you is thick with fine, settling dust, a pervasive, gritty film that coats your tongue and grates in your throat. It carries the faint, acrid scent of old fires, of scorched wood, and something metallic, like dried blood, a residue of past struggles that now seems to mingle with the dust of the present. This isn't the vibrant, living dust of a bustling marketplace. It's the settling dust of a dying city, slowly suffocating under the weight of its own demise. Every breath you take feels heavy, dry, and tainted. You stand at a high window in a crumbling watchtower, gripping the rough, cold stone sill, your knuckles white. Below, the streets are eerily deserted, a stark contrast to the usual vibrant chaos of Alexandria. Shuttered shops, empty stalls, and silent courtyards stretch out, bathed in the sickly yellow light of a fading afternoon. The vibrant energy of the city has bled away, replaced by a profound, pervasive stillness, a quiet resignation that hums beneath the rhythmic, distant pounding. Your eyes strain towards the outer defenses, now just visible through the haze of dust. You can't see the rams themselves, but you can feel their impact, hear their silent, relentless work. You watch a few desperate figures, silhouetted against the fading light, moving slowly and without purpose, like ghosts haunting their own funeral. Their movements are devoid of urgency, of hope, a profound surrender in every step. You catch the faint glint of a Roman standard, planted on a distant hill, a stark, unyielding symbol of impending conquest, catching the last rays of the sun with chilling indifference. The tremor in the air grows stronger, a relentless mechanical force that seems to shake the very foundations of your resolve. Each distant thud echoes directly into your chest, a physical manifestation of the walls slowly, inevitably, giving way. You feel the grit of the dust between your teeth, a constant, irritating reminder of the slow, inescapable decay. There's no triumphant music, no defiant shouts of resistance, Just this quiet, pervasive crumbling, this methodical, brutal dismantling of everything. You press your forehead against the cold stone, feeling its rough texture, seeking a grounding in the tangible world against the dizzying, terrifying inevitability. The settling dust, the rhythmic tremor, these are the final agonizing breaths of a once proud city, slowly, relentlessly being consumed by the relentless, unyielding will of an advancing power. It's a bitter truth, how silently an empire can fall, not with a sudden dramatic collapse, but with the insidious, relentless creep of dust and the mournful, distant thud of a battering ram, slowly, irrevocably, breaking down its final defenses. The profound sense of an ending, heavy and inescapable, settles around you, making every moment feel like a final, agonizing farewell. You feel it, a sudden, sharp, almost metallic taste on your tongue, like a splash of cold, clean water after days of thirst. It's accompanied by an unexpected sound, a distant, ragged cheer, raw and desperate, that pierces through the oppressive silence. It's not the booming roar of a disciplined army, but a fragmented human outcry filled with disbelief and a fragile, surging hope. It echoes from somewhere beyond the outer walls, a fleeting, desperate defiance. For a single, fleeting moment, the grim, metallic taste of despair is replaced by this sharp, exhilarating flavor of a small, hard-won victory. You are huddled in a dark, damp alleyway, the cold, rough stone pressing into your back, the air thick with the settling dust of the dying city. Your ears, dulled by days of silence and the rhythmic tremor of distant rams, are suddenly alert, straining to catch every fragment of that unexpected sound. You had almost forgotten what such a cheer felt like, what it meant to taste such a moment of success. Around you, gaunt figures, previously slumped in resignation, stir, heads lift, slowly, cautiously. Eyes, hollowed by hunger and fear, widen, flicking towards each other in mute astonishment. You see a young woman, clutching a threadbare shawl around her shoulders, her lips parting in a silent gasp of disbelief. A flicker of something almost akin to life returning to her pale face. For a heartbeat, the despair breaks. The sharp taste of this fleeting victory, though small, feels immense, overwhelming. The cheer swells, then quickly recedes, a fragile wave breaking against an insurmountable shore. It's the last cheer in Alexandria, a desperate, defiant cry torn from the very throats of those who still cling to a sliver of hope. You feel the tremor in the ground beneath you, no longer just the distant rams, but also the faint, shuddering vibration of renewed frantic activity from the outer defenses. A surge of effort, a momentary pushback against the inevitable. Your gaze sweeps across the faces around you, illuminated by the last, dying rays of the sun filtering through the dust-filled air. You see raw courage, fleeting and desperate. You see tears, not of sorrow, but of a sudden, overwhelming release, a brief, sharp taste of what it means to be alive, to fight, even against overwhelming odds. But beneath this surge of fleeting joy, you also feel the chilling undercurrent, the knowledge that this moment, this small, sharp victory is precisely that, fleeting. It cannot hold back the tide. The air, still heavy with dust and the acrid smell of old fear, quickly begins to reclaim its oppressive weight. The cheer dies down, swallowed by the vast, encroaching silence. The rhythmic thud of the distant rams, though briefly muted, slowly, inexorably begins to reassert itself, a cold, relentless reminder of the true, unyielding reality. That sharp taste of victory, so potent for a moment, now feels almost bitter, a cruel tease against the pervasive, inevitable truth. It makes you wonder, with a profound, aching clarity, how much strength a single, brief moment of hope can inject into a dying world, even when everyone knows the end is already written. It's a powerful, heartbreaking reminder of the human spirit's capacity to celebrate, even on the brink of total annihilation. You feel the rough, cold stone of the palace wall against your back, trying to absorb some of its ancient solidity. But even it seems to vibrate with a low, inescapable hum. The air inside the grand antechamber is thick with the scent of fear, mingled with the faded perfume of expensive silks and the metallic tang of old bronze. You're pressed into a shadowed corner, one of many silently huddled figures, each face pale and drawn, every eye fixed on the immense, ornate palace gates at the far end of the hall. The hushed whispers from moments ago have died, replaced by a profound, agonizing silence that amplifies every frantic beat of your own heart. Then, it begins. A deep, guttural groan, not from a living creature, but from immense, ancient metal. It's the grating of the palace gates, a slow, relentless, agonizing sound that grinds through your bones. It scrapes, shudders, and shrieks, a metallic protest of monumental hinges giving way, of heavy bronze dragging against rough stone. Each torturous inch of movement feels like a century passing, like the very fabric of time is being torn apart. You feel the tremor ripple through the floor, a physical manifestation of the immense force being applied, slowly, inevitably, from the outside. A sliver of harsh morning light, alien and intrusive, appears between the gates, widening slowly into a gap. Through it you catch the first glimpse of a new, terrifying reality. Not the chaos of a siege, but the stark, unwavering order of a conquering army. You hear it now, too, distinct from any sound you've ever heard inside these walls. The precise, synchronized thump, thump, thump of thousands of marching sandals on the polished cobblestones outside. This is the sound of Rome's arrival. It's an organized, terrifying rhythm, punctuated by the metallic jingle of armor and the low, confident commands in Latin, sharp and unyielding. You see the glint of bronze helmets, perfectly aligned, a sea of grim, unsmiling faces. Their disciplined advance feels utterly relentless, a force of nature. There's no hurry, no frantic charge, just a methodical, unstoppable progression into the heart of everything. You watch as the opening widens further, revealing the full, brutal majesty of the invading army. The air outside, though clear, seems to carry the cold, impersonal scent of conquest, of iron, of dust, of absolute victory. You see the Roman eagle standards gleaming fiercely in the morning light, planted firmly, defiantly for all to see. A profound chill settles over you, a cold certainty that this is the absolute, undeniable end. A guard near you, his face streaked with tears and dirt, slowly drops his spear, the heavy clatter on the marble floor startlingly loud in the oppressive silence within the palace. No one flinches. Their gazes remain fixed, mesmerized by the unfolding spectacle of their destiny. The grating of the palace gates, so agonizingly slow, now feels like the final, grinding breath of an empire, surrendering its very heart. The sound of Rome's arrival isn't just noise. It's the thunderous, undeniable pronouncement of a new era, sweeping away the old, leaving behind only the cold, hard echoes of what once was. The sheer, overwhelming finality of this moment crashes down, leaving you breathless, an unwilling witness to the inexorable march of history. You feel it, an immediate, shocking warmth spreading across your cheek, then the slick, sticky sensation as it drips down towards your jaw. It's blood, thick and vital, no longer contained within a body, now a grim, metallic anointing. The sharp, coppery tang invades your nostrils, mixing with the acrid scent of dust and sweat, and the pungent smell of freshly churned earth from a broken courtyard fountain. The clash of steel, a furious, high-pitched ringing, is deafeningly close, punctuated by the heavy grunt of exertion and the sickening thud of bodies hitting the cold, polished marble floor. You are pressed against a statue of a forgotten goddess, its cold, smooth stone providing a small, desperate refuge from the whirlwind of violence. Soldiers, Roman and Egyptian, are locked in brutal, intimate combat around you, their faces contorted masks of rage and fear. You see the glint of a Roman gladius as it plunges, the flash of a shield deflecting a blow, the desperate, flailing movements of a man fighting for his very last breath. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm that matches the chaos unfolding inches away. Then, you see him, a figure, once a beacon of defiant Egyptian strength, now swaying precariously, his elaborate battle helmet lost, his face grim, smeared with dirt and his own flowing blood. He has just cut down a Roman legionary, but not without cost. He stumbles, his knees buckling, the crimson spreading quickly across his chest, soaking into the intricate patterns of his tunic. He is a hero, or was in the brief, desperate fight for this inner sanctum of the palace. His eyes, burning with a fading, desperate fire, search the frantic scene. He spots her. A woman, her face pale with terror and grief, reaching out to him, her fingers splayed, trembling. She pushes through the melee, oblivious to the blades and the dying, her gaze fixed only on him. You watch as he takes a staggering step, then another, towards her, pushing through the last, desperate flailing of combatants. His eyes never leave hers. The stickiness of the blood on your face, once horrifying, now feels like a shared mark, a tangible connection to the raw, visceral tragedy unfolding. With a final, gasping lurch, he reaches her. Their hands meet, then intertwine, pulling each other into a desperate, final embrace. You hear his breath, a ragged, wet gasp, as he clutches her to him, his body collapsing against hers. Her arms wrap around him fiercely, as if she could hold back the very tide of death, her face buried in his bloodied shoulder, her shoulders shaking with silent, agonizing sobs. It's a brutal intimacy, a moment of profound, heartbreaking tenderness amidst the swirling violence. You feel the immense, suffocating weight of their shared despair, the agony of a final embrace that will soon be broken not by will, but by the relentless, unyielding grip of death itself. The clatter of steel continues around them, but in that moment, for them, the world has shrunk to this one, desperate, final contact. The stickiness of a hero's blood, the unbearable agony of their embrace, they are the stark, indelible marks of a world irrevocably lost. You feel it, the sudden, unyielding press of something cold and heavy against your wrist. Then comes the sharp, metallic clink as it snaps shut. It's the cold shock of an iron chain, unforgiving and absolute, instantly binding you. The smooth, brutal weight of the metal feels utterly foreign, a stark contrast to the familiar warmth of your own skin, yet now it's a part of you, a constant, chilling presence. The scent of stale sweat and fear, already thick in the dimly lit chamber, is now overlaid with the sharp, clean tang of cold iron. You stand in a small, damp cell, the rough-hewn stone walls oozing with a perpetual chill that seeps into your bones. The floor beneath your bare feet is gritty and uneven, each step a painful reminder of your new reality. Your eyes, now adjusted to the gloom, scan the faces of the others huddled nearby. They are former courtiers, once proud soldiers, now reduced to silent, hunched figures, their expressions blank with despair. You see the glint of similar chains on their wrists, a universal badge of their shared, humiliating fate. You instinctively reach for the fabric around you, feeling the roughness of a captive's tunic against your fingers. It's coarse, undyed wool, a far cry from the soft linen and embroidered silks you once knew. The material scrapes against your skin, chafing subtly, an irritating friction that mirrors the gnawing frustration in your gut. It smells of dampness and despair, an anonymous, heavy scent that has replaced the exotic perfumes of the palace. This isn't a garment of choice or comfort. It's a uniform of subjugation, a deliberate stripping away of identity. The only sounds are the occasional sniffle, a low, collective sigh, and the constant, subtle chink of the chains as someone shifts their weight. Each metallic whisper is a reminder of the unbreakable hold, the loss of freedom, the irreversible turn of the tide. You look at your bound hands, at the calloused fingers that once commanded, that once held instruments of power, now rendered useless, imprisoned by the unforgiving iron. The cold pressure around your wrist feels like a brand, a permanent mark of this new, brutal existence. You feel a profound, aching emptiness, a hollowness that echoes the damp, dark confines of the cell. The cold shock of the iron chain is not merely physical. It's a profound spiritual assault, a stark declaration of utter defeat. The roughness of the captive's tunic, once an indignity, now feels like a second skin, a constant, irritating reminder of everything that has been lost, everything that has been stripped away. You are no longer who you were. You are merely a prisoner, held by cold iron, wrapped in rough cloth, waiting for a fate that is no longer your own to decide. The sheer, overwhelming finality of this moment crashes down, leaving you breathless, suspended between the echoes of a glorious past and the terrifying blankness of an unknown, captive future. You feel the cold, rough fabric of your tunic chafe against your neck as you are pushed forward, stumbling slightly. The air hits you, a completely foreign smell. Stale leather, Roman parchment, unwashed woolen cloaks, and the sharp, clean tang of cold steel. It's the scent of a disciplined, conquering army, utterly devoid of the rich spices or exotic perfumes of Alexandria. You are inside a Roman tent, a temporary structure that somehow feels more permanent, more formidable than any palace. The low light filtering through the thick canvas makes the shadows long and menacing. You stand stiffly, your hands clasped behind your back, feeling the unyielding grip of the guard who propelled you inside. Your gaze sweeps the interior of the tent. It's sparse, functional, every object placed with precise, military efficiency. Maps, half-rolled, lie on a plain wooden table, alongside stacks of scrolls and a gleaming, unadorned gladius. There's no ornamentation, no frivolous luxury, only the stark, hard reality of power. Then, you meet his eyes. Octavian. He sits behind the table, a figure of contained, formidable authority. His expression is unreadable, calm, almost unnervingly so. But his gaze is a tangible, physical weight that presses down on you, pinning you in place. It's cold, analytical, devoid of warmth or empathy, sweeping over you with the dispassionate efficiency of a general assessing a conquered foe. You feel it on your skin, that heavy, penetrating stare, dissecting you, weighing your worth, your weakness, your potential. It's not a gaze of anger, but of absolute, chilling control. You feel a dryness in your mouth, your throat suddenly constricted. Every breath feels shallow, difficult. The silence in the tent is absolute, broken only by the distant, rhythmic thump of Roman sentries outside. The very air seems to thicken around you, charged with the immense, unyielding will of the man before you. You notice the subtle shift of a muscle in his jaw, the slight movement of his fingers as they tap, almost imperceptibly, against the hilt of his gladius. These are the only tells, tiny cracks in a facade of absolute composure. This isn't a confrontation of equals. This is the stark, brutal reality of submission, of a world utterly conquered. You are not a dignitary. You are a trophy, a piece in his grand design to be moved or discarded at his whim. The foreign smell of the Roman tent, stark and unyielding, now feels like the very scent of your inescapable future. The weight of Octavian's gaze is a constant, suffocating pressure, a silent declaration of ownership that penetrates deep into your very soul. You realize with a chilling clarity that the battles are truly over, and the true meaning of defeat lies not in the clash of swords, but in the cold, dissecting stare of the victor, seeing you not as a person, but as a mere object of his dominion. The sheer, overwhelming power emanating from him, silent and absolute, leaves you breathless, utterly exposed, and profoundly, terribly alone. You feel it, a persistent, rasping dryness in your throat, like sand caught in the back of your mouth. It makes swallowing an effort, a constant, irritating reminder of the mounting desperation. The air in the tent, stale with the scent of leather and parchment, feels thick and unyielding, heavy with the weight of unspoken pleas and an overwhelming sense of finality. You stand by, a silent observer, as the queen, no longer adorned in the regalia of power, but in simple, elegant mourning attire, attempts to speak. Her voice, usually so clear and commanding, is now a fragile whisper, a strained instrument trying to push past that same pleading dryness. You see her lips part, her throat work, a visible effort to produce sound, to find the words that might, against all odds, shift the unyielding resolve of Octavian. You catch the faint tremor in her hands, subtly clasped, a telltale sign of the profound vulnerability beneath her practiced composure. You are acutely aware of the change in the atmosphere. No longer the commanding presence, she is now the supplicant. Her every gesture, every intonation, infused with a desperate, heartbreaking urgency. She speaks of alliances, of past glories, of a shared future, but the words, once so potent, now seem to echo into a vast, empty space. This is the hollowness of charm, stripped of its power, rendered utterly ineffective against a mind already made up, a will of iron that refuses to bend. You watch Octavian. He sits impassively, his face a mask of cold, unyielding composure. His eyes, fixed on the queen, are still and analytical, showing no flicker of emotion, no hint of being swayed. He listens, yes, but it's the listening of a judge, not a negotiator. He occasionally taps a finger against his cheek, a small, rhythmic motion that seems to mock the desperate, halting flow of her words. The cold, Roman scent of him, of steel and discipline, feels utterly impervious to her fading allure. You feel a profound pity, a sense of deep, gnawing futility. The queen, famed for her ability to captivate, to bend wills, to weave a spell with her intelligence and grace, now faces a force immune to such persuasion. Her power, once so formidable, relied on an alchemy of desire and respect. Now, with respect replaced by conquest and desire by cold ambition, her most potent weapon is rendered useless. Her voice, once a siren's call, now feels like a lament, a song sung to a deaf and indifferent god. The dryness of her pleading throat, the strained whisper of her words, they combine with the profound, unyielding silence of Octavian's response to create an atmosphere of crushing, inevitable doom. You understand now that some battles are fought and lost, not with swords, but with the desperate, futile resonance of a charm that has finally, irrevocably, found its match in cold, unyielding will. The hollowness of her charm echoes through the tent, a stark, chilling testament to the end of an era where persuasion could once turn the tide of empires. You feel it. A subtle shift in the air as the queen's hand, once renowned for its persuasive touch, hesitates, hovering just inches from Octavian's motionless arm. It's not an offer of comfort, but a final desperate attempt to bridge an unbridgeable chasm. A ghost of a negotiator's touch, you think, one that would have once bent any will, melted any resolve. But here, in this Roman tent, the air itself feels cold and resistant, absorbing all warmth, all subtle persuasion. You stand in the shadows, your rough tunic scraping softly against the tent's canvas wall, the faint scent of stale leather and iron filling your nostrils. The silence in the tent is absolute, broken only by the distant, rhythmic clang of Roman hammers from the camp outside. A relentless, unyielding sound. Your eyes are fixed on Octavian, seated behind his plain wooden table, his posture as rigid as polished marble. He doesn't flinch, doesn't stir. His gaze, colder than any winter wind, remains fixed on the queen's face, utterly unmoved by her quiet plea, by the subtle tremble in her poised hand. You feel a profound sense of futility, a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the air. This isn't a man who can be swayed by charm, by grace, by a whisper of shared humanity. His ambition, you realize, is a tangible force, radiating from him like heat from a forge, but utterly cold. It's the hardness of ambition, an impermeable shield that deflects every appeal, every unspoken gesture, every ghost of a touch. You watch as a muscle in his jaw tightens, almost imperceptibly, a hint of steel beneath the calm, controlled exterior. He doesn't look away, doesn't blink. His focus is absolute, relentless. The queen's hand, after a long, agonizing moment, slowly withdraws, falling back to her side, her fingers curling inward as if clutching at something unseen. You feel the crushing weight of that unfulfilled gesture, the stark realization that her most potent weapon, her legendary ability to connect, to persuade, has been rendered utterly powerless. The air, once charged with a fragile hope, now feels heavy with a terrible, absolute finality. You observe the subtle shift in her expression. The trace of vulnerability that flickered in her eyes is swiftly replaced by something colder, more distant. A mask of regal defiance returning. But it feels different now, almost brittle. She has faced an immovable object, a force so absolute, it cannot even acknowledge the attempt at connection. You feel the dryness in your mouth, a taste like ash, as you realize the magnitude of this failure. The tent itself seems to echo with the silent verdict, the unchallenged authority of the victor. Every object in the room, from the unadorned gladius on the table to the rough, functional fabric of the canvas, seems imbued with this same hardness, this unyielding ambition that has simply consumed everything in its path. The ghost of a negotiator's touch, once so powerful, now seems to dissipate entirely, leaving behind only the stark, cold reality of absolute, unassailable power. You understand, with chilling clarity, that some ambitions are so vast, so utterly ruthless, that they cannot be touched, cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bent. They merely conquer, leaving behind a profound emptiness where all other wills once resided. You feel the air, thick and still, carrying an unexpected sweetness. It's the heady, rich scent of a freshly opened fig, a cloying, almost decadent aroma that seems utterly out of place in this small, hushed chamber. It clings to the heavy tapestries and the rough stone walls, mingling subtly with the faint metallic tang of old ambition and the dry scent of ancient dust. This isn't the chaotic smell of the city or the barracks. This is the controlled, deliberate perfume of a final, private moment. You stand near the entrance, a silent, almost invisible witness, feeling the cool stone beneath your bare feet, the roughness grounding you against the dizzying tension. Your eyes are fixed on the low table where a simple, woven basket sits. It's filled with plump, dark figs, their skins almost splitting with ripeness. Next to it, a single oil lamp casts flickering shadows that dance across the queen's face, illuminating her features with a soft, ethereal glow. Her movements are deliberate, slow, imbued with a profound, terrifying calm. You perceive the subtle rise and fall of her chest, the only visible sign of her fragile human life, contrasting sharply with her absolute composure. She reaches into the basket, her fingers, once adorned with dazzling rings, now bare and elegant, plucking a fig. You watch her bring it to her lips, the movement slow, almost ritualistic, a last indulgence. The sweetness of the fruit, you imagine, spreads across her tongue, a fleeting taste of life's simple pleasures amidst the bitter reality. Then you see it, a sudden, sharp, almost imperceptible prick. It's quick, precise, a tiny sting barely visible to the eye. You feel a jolt, an instinctive recoil, as if the sharp point has touched your own skin. The queen's hand stiffens, her fingers clenching for a brief, agonizing moment around the now-dropped fig. Her head tilts back slightly, a silent, almost imperceptible gasp escaping her lips, lost in the stillness of the room. The scent of the fig, once sweet, now seems to sour in the air, tinged with something metallic, something utterly final. A loyal servant, huddled in a corner, lets out a choked sob, quickly stifled, but the sound, raw and heartbroken, rips through the absolute silence. You feel the cold dread spread through you, a profound, undeniable certainty. The sharp prick of destiny has delivered its final, irreversible blow. The sweetness of the fig, a last, fragile comfort, now feels like a cruel deception, a prelude to an ending that could no longer be averted. The air feels heavy, thick with the weight of a life quietly, deliberately extinguished, leaving behind only the lingering, tainted scent of fruit and the chilling echo of an empire's final, defiant breath. It's a moment of profound, quiet horror, a testament to a final choice made with chilling resolve, a queen choosing her own ending, rather than letting it be chosen for her. You feel it. An insidious coldness beginning to seep, not from the outside, but from deep within your arm, spreading slowly, relentlessly, like a winter river thawing from within. It's the profound, alien chill of venom, moving with an almost deliberate purpose, erasing sensation as it claims each part of you. First a tingling numbness, then a heavy, unfeeling weight, each pulse of the coldness sending a shiver through your entire being that has nothing to do with the room's temperature. The sweet scent of the fig, once cloying, now feels like a ghostly memory, dissolving into a faint, metallic tang that coats the back of your throat. You are still a silent witness in the small, hushed chamber, feeling the cool stone floor beneath your feet, anchoring you to this grim reality. Your eyes are fixed on the queen, motionless now. Her hand, which moments ago held the fateful fruit, lies still, open, almost delicate, on the rich fabric of her mourning gown. Her head is tilted slightly, her eyes closed, her features settled into an expression of serene, almost defiant peace. The flickering oil lamp casts long, dancing shadows, making her appear less like a living queen, and more like an ancient statue, carved from the purest marble, utterly still, utterly composed. Then it comes, the utter silence of the tomb, not merely a quiet room, but a profound, absolute absence of sound that seems to press in on your ears, vibrating with its own emptiness. The last, choked sob from the loyal servant in the corner has faded, swallowed whole by this overwhelming stillness. No rustle of fabric, no creak of old timber, no distant city hum. Only the heavy, thick air, stagnant and unmoving, a vast, echoing void where life and breath once resided. Each beat of your own heart feels impossibly loud, a frantic drum in this sacrosanct hush. You watch the loyal servant, now completely still, their face buried in their hands, their entire body trembling with silent, agonizing grief. Their loyalty, so fierce, now manifests as this profound internal shudder, a silent, heartbroken vigil. The air itself feels thick with this unspoken sorrow, heavy with the weight of an irreversible ending. The coldness that had begun to spread seems to coalesce around the queen, a silent, unseen shroud claiming her completely. Her breath, once a subtle rise and fall, is now utterly absent, leaving behind only the profound, terrifying stillness of an eternal repose. The rich tapestries, the ornate furnishings, the very stones of the chamber, all seem to hold their breath, bearing witness to a final, sovereign choice. This profound absolute silence, this spreading coldness, they are the undeniable harbingers of a new era, not with a shout or a battle cry, but with this quiet, deliberate surrender. An empire, a queen, has finally taken her last breath. You realize, with a chilling clarity, how utterly final such a quiet ending can be, how the absence of sound, the cessation of life, can speak more powerfully than any triumph. The utter silence of the tomb settles, cold and absolute, claiming the last living vestige of a magnificent, defiant, and ultimately tragic gamble, leaving behind only the profound, aching emptiness of history's inexorable march.